Sick.
Good evening. How are you?
BBC Radio Manchester.
Hey. You alright? Smart. So am I. I'm Allan Beswick. This is the Allan Beswick Late Night Phone-In. We are here until 1 o'clock in the morning. And if you wish to join us, that's jolly good. You would be more than welcome. The team tonight, we have Talat in charge, Marlon taking your calls, Jane working the buttons, and Jack worrying about, one presumes, causing bother, which I always thought was my job. I'll do my best to continue in that manner. 0800 218 2255. If you wish to join us, you can. We're here, as I say, until 1. The newspapers this week, as always, have been curate's egg, really. Good in parts. The Energy Secretary, Grant Shapps, says that we'll take every last drop of oil out of the North Sea fields. Every last drop, says he. How times change. When the miners told Margaret Thatcher of the folly of shutting mines and leaving millions of tons of coal underground, she ignored them, but then she hated the miners, and modern Tories love the multinational oil companies. A photograph of something on Mars looks what can only be described as peculiar. Needless to say, the crackpot little green men brigade reckon it could be a crashed alien spaceships, and scientists who like to deal really in evidence and proof say, well, quite frankly, that can't be ruled out, because until it's ruled in what it is, everything else is available and can't be ruled out. All I can say is that if it's a crashed spaceship, then the Mekons were bloody awful drivers. Last year, these are the numbers, I don't make them up. Last year there were 4,000 cases of people needing surgery after being attacked by a dog, often their own lovely little pooch, man's best friend. What crap. My favourite headline this week was in the Daily Post. I have to concede it was the North Wales version of the Daily Post, normally known as the Liverpool Daily Post. Anyway, the North Wales version. Woman and parrot stranded on cliff edge after falcon attack. I love it. Woman and parrot stranded on cliff edge after falcon attack. Scary for her and presumably for Polly, but still funny. And it being Wales, the parrot was heard screeching, "Pieces of slate, pieces of slate." It's a Long John Silver joke. Come on, make an effort. Elon Musk's accused of telling his workers to rig the display panel on Tesla cars to show the vehicle has a longer range on a charge than it actually has. A car company lying about cars is the allegation. Surely that can't be true. Don't mention the emissions scandal. And the mind boggles. Really, really boggles. This story has exercised a lot of people, including a former Tory minister this very day. But the mind boggles because you remember that bloke who did 17 years for a rape that he didn't commit because of the lies and deception of the Greater Manchester Filth, a criminal nickname for the police years ago. Well, he's now been told that if he gets compensation, he might have to pay the prison service for his bed and board for 17 years. So you go to jail for something you didn't do, and then we finally concede, against all their attempts to prevent it, when they finally concede, yes, they lied and cheated and screwed you over to get you into jail, they then say, right, here's some compensation, but you've been living on porridge for 17 years, you owe us the money for the Scots oats. What do you reckon the chances are of the current Home Secretary changing that? Answer, zilch. They've already said, we are not discussing it at the moment. And then I like this story this week. Scientists, it's always them, isn't it? Scientists have thawed out a worm. Yeah, a worm, an ordinary wriggly worm. Well, not that ordinary, if the truth be told. It's been frozen in the permafrost, as it were, for 46,000 years. 46,000 years. And they thawed it out. And when they thawed it out, it came back to life. I know. Extraordinary. Shocking. Even a little bit frightening. But they should check its DNA against that of Vladimir. Good evening, how are you? Yeah, I know, it's interesting, isn't it? It's already 7 minutes past 10. Well, very nearly 8. Let's be a bit picky while we can. We're here till 1 o'clock in the morning. You can talk about anything. The lines are open. The number is 0800 218 2255. And let us begin and say, how do James?
Hello?
Hello.
Right. I'd like to ask you a few questions, if that's okay.
Well, you can ask.
What do you think happens after you die?
Personally, I don't think anything happens. I think you're just dead and that's the end of it.
Right. Have you ever lied, stolen, or used God's name in vain?
Thousands of times.
Right. If you were to die now, do you think you'd go to heaven?
I don't
or hell?
think it exists. I don't think it exists, so I wouldn't go to either. I'd just be dead.
Well, I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Well, everybody tells me I'm wrong about all sorts of things. It doesn't change my opinion much.
Well, I used to believe in reincarnation, but it was one December evening I came across the truth that after death, man either goes to heaven or hell.
So you don't believe the Bible story then?
Yeah, I do.
All right. Which bit? Do you believe the bit where the Bible seems to imply that you will be reunited with all that is you? Or is that bit one of the bits you don't believe?
What do you mean by you reunited with all that is you?
Well, isn't there something in the Bible that says you will be put back together, as it were, by the great and good?
There is a verse about being reconciled with God, yeah.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, everyone that's trusted in Jesus Christ for their salvation will be reconciled with God after death.
What about Jewish people and Muslim people? They just go to hell in your world?
Well, Muslims will go to hell. As for Jewish people, I'm not sure because they still believe in the Torah.
Whoa. Jesus doesn't make it into the Torah.
No, but they still...
Well, hang on.
Sure
hang
on.
On. I can only, you're not sure. Well, we can accept not sure. You're coming here to proselytise, and yet you're not sure. You told me that something to do with Jesus Christ will be good, and then you told me that people who don't believe in Jesus Christ you're not sure about. So which one do you want to go with? The one where you're certain or the one where you're not sure? In which case, which one should we believe?
I'm not sure about Jewish people, but as for...
Why are you not sure about Jewish people? They
does not believe in God.
Listen.
Anyone who's an atheist will go to hell.
I didn't ask you about atheists. You mentioned Jesus Christ. Now, there are lots of faiths in this world that support a God of some sort, believe in a God of some sort, an omnipotent God, and you say the only lot that are going to survive and, if you like, have a good time after death are the ones that believe in Jesus, which Jewish people don't, as the Son of God, nor indeed do Muslims believe in him as the Son of God. Neither do Buddhists. Are all those lot going to hell because they don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God? I'm asking you. You don't have to know. You can say I don't know, but then what you said earlier looks daft.
What I know for a fact is that atheists are going to hell.
You don't know that for a fact. You have no way of knowing that for a fact. You've read a book that's got it in it.
No.
That's your belief. No. That is your belief. You have no idea what happens after death. You've got a belief system, and I wish not to change it. But when you tell me that all those that believe in Jesus will experience this, and then I offer you a list of people who patently don't believe in Jesus in your view of that individual, you tell me you don't know. So either you do know or you don't. Which is it? So far I'm going with don't. You haven't a bloody clue.
What my view is that those who have heard the gospel, which is the good news, what I've preached to you.
Which is the gospel? Which is the gospel?
It's basically where you hear that the Bible says we're all sinners, we've all come short.
Can I just ask you, rather than faff about with quotes, when you say the gospel, do you mean the New Testament?
Yeah, gospel means good news.
No, I know what the word means. I'm asking you what you mean when you use it. Do you mean when you say, I believe in the gospel, we all believe in good news. You know, your football team wins, that's good news, we believe in that. I'm asking you what you mean when you say, I believe in the gospel. What is it you're believing in? Is it the New Testament?
Yes.
Excellent. And in the New Testament, which Jewish people don't believe, nor indeed the Muslim people, or many other faiths. So I say again, all those that don't believe in the New Testament, that God has risen in the form of his Son, are they going to hell?
Well, what I say is this, that those...
Well, are you going to answer the question?
Look, I'm not sure about Jewish people.
Okay, well, have a good think about it and ring me back when you're there. Good night. How do Sheik?
I'm Allan. I'm calling from Lancashire, Burnley. I'm proud of I'm Burnley boy. I learning in the church, peace be with you. In this country, a sole ruler empire, whole world knew this one, British Empire, oldest empire. Then another one, I'm Bengali, Bangladeshi. I'm proud of Bangladeshi. Our Bangladeshi army, number one in this world. They proved it in 2005, 27 January. America, White House knew that. All Saudi knew that. All army knew that. Another one, because you know why I talking army? Because 1 minute ago you talking about the Jesus Christ and Bible. Bible is a religion book. What is in the Bible? Jesus Christ received this everything from God. Angel tell him. And why not believe Muhammad? Quran is a Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, Yehudi, Christian, Muslim. Everything is a Quran. No, I tell you
it's just a different set of mumbo jumbo. Have a good night. Have a good night. God. How do Ted?
All right, Alan, kid. Just to say, you know, me dad died in '84, Alan. He worked in a chemical factory. And at the period of time that he was there, he brought in a nurse, the factory, and he took blood samples from all the workers in the factory. Then he redundant the workers, the factory, and whitewashed. What do you think of that?
I don't.
Do you think it's wrong?
I wasn't there. I don't know whether it's right or wrong. I don't know the full story.
Do you believe in mysticism, Alan?
No.
You know what mysticism is?
No, you tell me.
Mysticism is when you experience spirits or whatever, it's telling you decide what's happening in your life.
Right. Well, the answer's still no then.
Okay, no then.
That it? Jolly good. 0800 218 2255. The only mysticism I believe in is how come there are so many barn pots to believe some of the crap that's flying about. But apart from that, I'm fine. 0800 218 2255. It's Bonnie Tyler with a total eclipse. Yeah, it's all about dead rabbits. Not that one, the bright eyes. 0800 218 2255. How do Sue?
Hello, Alan. Hi. That was a cracking record. It's one that I turn up on the radio in my car and I absolutely belt it out. But anyway,
oh dear.
By the way.
You're frightening us all now, you know that, don't you?
Well, yeah, no, I'm on country lanes when I do it, so don't worry. I'd like to tell you about my daughter's experience in Rhodes last weekend.
Okay, please
which
do.
Was absolutely horrendous. They got there early Saturday morning, and fortunately they didn't unpack the suitcases. My grandchildren, my daughter was there with 2 grandchildren, and they were desperate to go in the pool. They were hot. They were, my daughter, the night before, or I should say it was dark when they arrived, they could see the glow of fires at the back of the hotel, and she thought, that doesn't look good. And the smell of smoke, and the taxi driver said, you should be okay, which really wasn't reassuring. But anyway, the girls went in the pool, what have you, and everybody around the pool, all their phones went off, and it was the Greek police, I think, or somebody, who warned them to evacuate. So everybody went back into the hotel and said, what do we do? So the staff said, bring your suitcases down here to the lobby, but you should be okay. Right. At which case, 2 local men rushed into the hotel and said, get out now, the hotel is on fire. Now, it was a beach hotel, they were right next to the beach. So, like she said, it's a big hotel, lots and lots of people. And she said, we're all rushing down this narrow path down to the beach. They were, of course, they're in the swimwear, and they'd grabbed. Fortunately, my daughter thought about it, and she said, I had a grab bag ready, which had my passport in, money and cards, and toothpaste, and because they're all women, she put some sanitary products in and underwear and that. So they had the grab bag. So they're going down to the beach, and hot burning ash was falling on them. So they've got burns on their head and shoulders. One of my granddaughters has got quite a burn on her cheek. Their lungs were filling with smoke. They got down to the beach, and one of the local men, no reps, by the way, no reps to be seen anywhere for that company that my daughter was with, which I won't mention. The locals there were saying, get these discarded towels, wet them in the sea, and put them on your heads to protect you from the smoke and the hot burning ash that was falling. They got to the beach, and she said, literally, Mum, there was a flotilla of boats all coming in to the beach to grab these people off the beach and put them onto bigger boats. They were sort of putting them on little boats to get on the bigger boats. One of her daughters was absolutely in a mess. She was crying, as a lot of adults were, and children, and she said it was just mayhem, Mum. Honestly, it was mayhem. Eventually, they were going up and down the coast. It's the south coast. And she said we kept going into this pall of black smoke. She said it was awful. Filled all their lungs and everything. So they did have a bit of smoke damage to their lungs after when they got home. But anyway, this was Saturday afternoon. So eventually they got taken out to sea, in the Mediterranean. And they stayed on this larger boat, which was a little ferry boat. It wasn't a big ferry boat. It was just a little one. She said, and all we had all night, there was like 150 people on this thing, one toilet, which for men and women, and one seat each. So they spent the night on this. They were cold, but the locals were trying to help them. Anyway, eventually they got put on a larger ferry, which went to Rhodes Old Town, and they got taken off the large ferry onto a coach and into a cinema. Right, so still no reps, but there was another company there, which I'll name if you want me to, which were excellent which were excellent with their customers and giving my daughter information as well. Nothing from her reps at all, and yet there were 6 families with that same company in the cinema. So eventually she said, we can't stay here. All that was provided was something like cheese and crackers and water. Next thing they know, there's some local people coming in with homemade pastries and pies, and this is local people feeding the nothing from the reps. But anyway, she was in a state because we've had the most horrendous year as well on top of this, and she was taking the girls away as a sort of holiday to try and forget things, because it's just been awful, absolutely awful. So anyway, I'm here, I'm talking to head office of their company that they went away with, and I'm screaming at them. I'm saying, for God's sake, do you know where they are? And they said, no, my daughter's phone kept tripping out because, lack of signal and that. So I wasn't able to get hold of her sometimes. I was panicking here, and it was just absolutely awful. This company, they'd answer, and I'd say, don't read to me off a script. Forget the script. What are you going to do about this? Well, we're doing the best we can. I said, it's not good enough. What are you going to do? You need to get them out. Not just my daughter and her daughters, but other families that are really struggling. There wasn't any accommodation to be had anywhere else on the island because, of course, it's the busiest week of the year. This other company was telling them they were putting on extra empty flights to get their customers home, but they were saying to my daughter and these 5 other families, I'm sorry, we can't accommodate you, but your company should be doing that. They didn't. So I'd been to Rhodes years ago, so I remembered lots of ferries that go out of Rhodes Old Town, which was where the cinema was, where they were. So I looked at the ferries going out of Rhodes, and I saw that there's plenty of ferries that go to Cos. And then I saw flights from Cos that were going back, not fully booked, going home from Cos. So I said, right, get on the ferry, get to Cos, get yourself booked on a flight home, which they did. They arrived home on Monday morning. I went round to see them. They were all very, very croaky because, of course, they've got smoke in the lungs. They'd also got burns, in various places on their bodies. So anyway, the upshot is, if you curtail your holiday, then the company don't really have to pay for you. So my daughter rang them and she said, look, I am taking this further. I am putting it out on social media. I've had interviews with the radio and they are broadcasting my interviews and they will name you if necessary. I'm naming you on social media. I will sue you for the burns that we sustained, but you should have got us out of that hotel much sooner than you did. Anyway, management have got involved from this company. This has been going on all week. Their baggage, by the way, is still at the hotel. And it's all their new clothes that they've taken away, on holiday, and enjoyed going shopping for new clothes and stuff. But anyway, hopefully that's not smoke damage. But in the end, it was a manager, quite a high-ranking manager, has got onto my daughter, and he said, we're reimbursing you the whole holiday. And also, we're offering you vouchers for a holiday to come with us, in the future. And we're reimbursing you your suitcases and your journey from Rhodes to Cos and Cos to home. So they've done good in the end, but during all the panic, they were rubbish. Eventually she saw one rep from her company, and he said, we didn't know you were here. We didn't know where anybody was. There was no communication at all. But the other company was. But they were with their customers all the time.
Well, yes, but what you don't know, that description you gave me of the cinema, where one company's rep was there, what you don't know, and this shouldn't appease you in any way, but there might have been another cinema somewhere else that had customers from the company that you're saying we're doing a great job, who were floundering like your daughter, and your daughter's company were there helping their customers. I mean, things that happen instantly, and the fire seems to have been that, means that there is utter disarray. And
it was, yeah.
But that's in the circumstances almost inevitable. And I know there were planes going out empty and picking up thousands of people. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was astounded at how many British people were on Rhodes at that time. It was the tens of thousands. The bloody island doesn't sink. Yeah,
I know.
It's utterly ludicrous when you think about it. All them people.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's hard, you know, you can plan, but every plan in the world, as soon as it's put into crisis action, falls to bits. They all do. So, I mean, the company should have been a little less reticent at sorting it out afterwards. You know, she shouldn't have had to start threatening all kinds of things to get squared up.
No,
but
she shouldn't. No.
But to say that they weren't there ready and waiting, well, there are 19,000 people. How many reps do you think there are? You know?
I know. And
I
realise that.
It's one of these things, isn't it? It's crises.
I know. But the other company were already sending planes out to pick people up. Not my daughter's company. She finally got hold of a few people at the head office and said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "Well, those that are coming back today have got flights home." But she said she said we could maybe get you on a flight on Tuesday night. And she said, so I've got to sit in this cinema for till Tuesday night in the hope that you are going to get us out. There's nowhere on the island to stay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. There was just, I hope they've learnt from this. I hope they've learned that...
They will have learned.
You know.
Regrettably, what they might have learned is that when things go wrong on a massive scale, there is nothing you can do to look after everybody instantly. It's just the way it is. When the Manchester Arena bomb, when that went off, they'd rehearsed it. The authorities had rehearsed it half a dozen times, and still they didn't get that act together instantly. So if you're all those thousands of miles away and there's a collective 19,000 people in crisis, an instant solution isn't available. Now, there will be people who get their assistance first because they're nearest to the facilities that provide that assistance. But if you're furthest away, because that's where your holiday is, then it's going to be difficult. And it's just awful. And all they can offer in the end is money. And it's never enough. It's never enough. You know,
but I mean,
if they said to her, we'll give you double the price of your holiday back. Yeah, right. Well,
I know.
How's that going to help my lungs and my arms, you know? And you can't...
No, I know.
It's very difficult to say that the holiday company is to blame for the fire, although we read today.
Oh, no, they're not. No. But the fires were already burning at the back of the hotel, and they were still flying people out.
Well,
so they were still flying people out, and people were being told when they arrived in Rhodes, you have to go to an evacuation centre, and people were saying, "But we've got this hotel." No, I'm sorry, you can't go there. It's evacuated. But they were still flying people out.
I know. The problem
I don't understand why they flew my daughter out.
Well, until the government, the Foreign Office, says it is unwise to travel, then there's no insurance available for not travelling. If your daughter, for example, off her own bat had said, "I'm not getting on that plane, I've heard what's going on in Rhodes, I'm not going," she wouldn't have got a bean. No,
she wouldn't.
Because she was just turned...
She had to experience what she experienced and shouted loud about it.
And
to get the money.
The government agency, the Foreign Office, effectively, some say, was far too slow in saying it was a major incident and people should be I mean, they never say don't go, but they say unless it's essential, and all that caper. So there's a whole pile of people, all of whom got wrong 20%. But it's only five people getting things wrong 20%, and it's total chaos. I mean, it's an horrendous story. I'm glad your daughter's out safely. What did they say?
Yeah, I know. I am. Oh gosh, I know. I just absolutely hugged them when I saw them. It was awful what they've been through. I rang the Foreign Office and I rang the embassy as well, and both said take instructions from the fire office, the police, and the local government officials. Yeah. And I said,
that's the thing on the ground.
The fires. But they're fighting the fires. There's nobody
it's just like here. Yes, the firefighters are fighting the fire, but there are people employed by the fire service to do the talking bit. I mean, the trouble is, crises do not deliver comfort.
No.
And I mean, what your daughter's gone through is absolutely horrendous. And the grandchildren, I believe they're your grandchildren rather than hers, but the grandchildren, how old are they?
15 and 13.
Right. Well, they won't have enjoyed it.
No.
But I can tell you, they'll get past it, and in a couple of years' time, they'll be boasting about it. Because that's what you do with horrible
when they get to school. I know, when they get
they're going to be the kings.
The teacher says, write about your experiences.
On holiday, we all remember that, don't we? And you're usually writing a lot of boring stuff.
I can imagine some swear words being...
Absolutely. What they need to do is get the paper and just set fire to it. Say, yeah, miss, this is what it was like. I'm not recommending that, but it wouldn't have. That'll teach you.
I know. We've had a laugh since. I mean, like all this flotilla of boats. I said, well, it's a good job you weren't mistaken for illegal immigrants or something. You'd have
been turned around straight away. Well, no, these are the kind of... Look, we're British, and I'm afraid that kind of not very kind, sardonic humour is how we've got through many a crisis.
Oh, I know. Yeah, black humour.
Anyway, absolutely, yeah. At least shroud humour in worst cases, but at least they're all safe, and the holiday company finally came across.
Yeah.
So,
thank God I remembered all the ferries that go out of Rhodes Old Town, and I thought, no, there's loads go all over. I'm sure they'll get a flight from either Turkey or one of the other islands or somewhere. And as I say, I saw loads of flights from Kos going, part full.
When they made the offer of a full refund of everything and their baggage and all the rest of it, and then they offered vouchers, has your daughter accepted that yet?
It's in an email. This was the latest email to say the money should be in your account.
But has she accepted it yet?
I don't know.
Right.
That I don't. I've not actually asked her.
Okay. If she has accepted it, then that's fine. End of story. If she has not accepted it, it might be worth trying to convert those vouchers into money.
Right. They're not very much, They're only about £250 each person.
That's 500 quid. How many of them were there?
Just the three of them.
Right. So that's 750 quid.
£750, yeah.
So it's not a kick in the nose, is it? You see, if they're offering vouchers, there's a calculation made when they offer vouchers. It's utterly cynical. If I offer you 250 quid and you take it, I'm 250 quid out of pocket. If I offer you 250 quid worth of vouchers, you'll put them in a drawer and forget them. You'll book your holiday with a different company next time and the voucher will run out and it's cost me nothing. Or you'll book the holiday with them and the 250 quid is a slight reduction of their profit, but there's still quids in. Yeah. So it's worth, if they've not yet accepted the offer of vouchers, saying, well, we're happy to accept the refund, thank you very much, that's exactly right, thank you, but we're not keen on vouchers. Yeah, we're not keen on vouchers.
Keen on the vouchers.
So, and one of the reasons I say the money will be back within blah, 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 is once the money's in the bank, they'll be able to say, well, you've accepted it. So be aware of that. She may be able to, she may not be inclined to, but she may be able to convert the vouchers into cash. Because a bird in the hand, you know, it's worth.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
But she is thinking of taking them away later in the month, you know, before the end of school holidays.
Well, then in that case, the vouchers, from her point of view, the vouchers may be worth it.
Might be worth it. The following day, I read in the paper that there's half-price holidays to Rhodes.
Yes, you can see why. So, a great experience for the kids. One that
I know, but the local
once you look
people,
back on it, it's fine.
Yeah, that I have to honestly admire the local people, because these people are losing their homes, they're losing their livelihood from tourism, and yet they were helping the tourists as much as they possibly could. So, hats off to them, really.
Indeed so. So, human beings in the end are pretty good creatures. Good to talk to you. Have a good night, and I'm glad they're all safe. 0800 218 2255. A nice relaxing holiday in Rhodes. What could be better? How do, Martin?
Good evening, Alan.
Good evening.
Good evening. My question to you, sir, is about these refugees that we still have dotted all around the country in hotels, which is still costing us a lot of money, the taxpayer a lot of money, by the government. And they've got this barge down on the south coast, and they've delayed putting 500 people on that, and apparently they've now delayed putting 2,000 migrants into RAF's camps until October. So does that mean still paying for them to live in hotels?
One presumes yes.
So why as taxpayers don't we get a say on anything apart from voting at the ballot box?
Well, because every taxpayer would want a say on a different issue. So when the government says we're thinking of putting up this tax, well, why doesn't the taxpayer get a say? Because if they got a say, they'd say don't do it. So,
well, I understand that aspect, like council tax. You could use that as an example, and I can understand that. But this one's just been flung upon us for the last year.
Well, the problem is, yes, it has been thrown upon us, and our government hasn't had a say in having this problem. All they have, if you like, is a say in how to deal with it. And you can't just throw them back into the sea and say, go and drown. So once you've got past, you can't throw them back into the sea, go and drown. You've then got to do something with them. And what you do with them is find somewhere for them to stay. Property in this country, as you possibly know, is at a premium, so you have to put them somewhere. The RAF camps, just this very day, the Home Secretary, or seemingly the Home Office, are less than pleased at the delay in the RAF camps being got ready. But these things take time, and so it will take time for it to happen. And so it's easy to say, why don't we taxpayers? If you did get a say, what question would you ask first of all? Let's say we were having a referendum on it. You'd have to frame a question. What question would you want asked by the government in the referendum?
Straight to the Home Office, it'd be, why have they taken so long with the backlog, which they knew was only going to get worse.
Hang on. If you ask the question in a referendum, why is it taking so long? A referendum's yes or no, so there's no answer to that. If you want the taxpayer to have a say, it's not a question. The government has to put a question to you. What question would you have the government put in the referendum so that you can have your say?
There were safe routes, but they're saying those safe routes have been closed.
So let me ask you again. You want a say? I'm asking you. The only way you can have a say, I mean, they're not going to phone you up because they've got to phone everybody else up. So the only way they can do it is in a referendum. We were given a say in whether to come out of the European Union or not. And there was a simple question put, come out or stay in, yes or no. That was it. So that's the kind of thing you get for you to have your say. So it has to be a dead straightforward question. What question would you like the government to frame so that you can give a yes-no answer to?
Right. will we still be paying France for them to be failing on their part?
Again, that's not a question that you're asking the government the question there. Remember, if you want to give your opinion to the government, they've got to ask you a question. What do you want the government to ask you so that you can say yes or no to it?
My question then would be in the same sort of vein. Why are you still paying France for a lot of money when they seem to, a lot of them come from France, from other countries?
Okay, so you go to the ballot box and the question on your ballot paper is, why are you paying... How do you say yes or no to that?
All right, my question then be, will you stop paying France because they haven't doing their job?
No, let me try and help you. In order for that question to be addressed as a referendum, the government would frame the question and saying, do you want the government to continue to pay France for trying to stop the illegal asylum seekers getting into boats? That's the question. What would you answer?
I would say, I don't want them to keep paying them because it's, in my opinion, that's what I would put on the paper. No, I don't want them to pay them.
Right. So, I don't want them to pay anything. We've established that. So now France will not be paid because our government has asked you and the referendum's gone and the decision was we don't want France to be paid. So France doesn't get paid. Do you think that would mean that there were more refugees, as you call them, but asylum seekers coming across the channel, or fewer, given that France gets some money off us to try and stop them and they're not perfectly equipped to do that? So not paying them, do you think France would say, well, they're not paying us, so we best work harder at it? Or would they say they're not paying us, so sod 'em?
No, I don't think that's the case of that. I don't think they've been doing it properly now anyway, so if we didn't pay them, I don't think it would get any worse, because it can't get any worse, really.
So, well, it can, but let's say it doesn't get any worse. So we still have the situation, in your view, of exactly the same number of asylum seekers landing on the south coast. So you haven't reduced the numbers, you haven't solved the government's problem of what to do with them. So what happens next? Where do we put them?
Well, if we voted to go out of Europe, why are we paying them when it's a safe country, France?
You're back with, why are we paying France? Let's pretend we're not paying them anymore. Let's pretend that you've won the day and the government doesn't pay France anymore. Do you think France would then work harder as a result of not being paid, or do you think they'd work less hard to stop asylum seekers getting onto boats in France and coming here, if they're not getting paid for it anymore?
Well, I don't think they can work less hard, because in my opinion, I don't think they've done enough.
OK, we agree that you don't think they've done enough, but we're trying to find something that reduces the number, aren't we?
Correct.
Right. And at the moment, they're being paid and they're not doing enough. Are you still with me?
Yes.
That's your view. They're being paid and they're not doing enough. Now, if we say, right, well, we're not paying you anymore, do you think France will do more to stop the asylum seekers, or do you think they'll do less, given that they're no longer being paid?
I don't know the answer to that,
Okay.
but my opinion on that is that it's not an incentive for them to do anything being paid, because I can't see that they have done anything.
Okay, and so
they're not being paid.
But the numbers that we have arriving at the moment is what's your biggest concern. Am I right?
Yes, because they're taking up hotels and other things.
It doesn't matter why. You want them to be fewer of them, yes?
Correct.
How do you think we can get it to be fewer? Never mind whether we pay France or not. How do we get fewer people getting on a boat in France, risking their life and coming to Britain? How do we get fewer people to do that?
Well, that's a big dilemma.
I know it's a big dilemma, but you're wanting a say in how it's fixed. So I'm asking you, what would you do?
I was having to say, I haven't got the solution. If I had the solution, I'd be very clever.
If you had the solution, it would be well clever. Do you think anybody's got the solution? Because the government, with all its genius, doesn't appear to have.
No. One department doesn't seem to have it. The Home Office and the Border Force.
None of them have the answer to it.
Collectively, no.
Quite. So, having a say, you having a say in it, Martin, I promise you, ain't going to make the government clever.
Well, I'm not trying to profess to do that.
It's too late on that one, Martin.
I know,
we've
just have to wait.
already blown that, haven't we?
And if we had next year with the election, I don't think, no matter who's going to come in, this is still going to carry on.
I think you may be right, although we do have the Prime Minister's guarantee that he will stop the boats. So let's wait and see. Well,
yeah,
you know,
there's enough time.
He didn't say he'd do it by Tuesday, but good on you, Martin. Good to talk to you. How do we stop the boats? It's all very well saying, don't pay France, they're not doing the job well enough, but, you know, how do we stop the boats? The Home Secretary believes she knows. She's not letting us know. The Prime Minister has given us a guarantee that that's his objective. But how do we do it? How do Ian?
Here we go.
You need to turn your radio off or whatever else it is you're listening to. Thank you.
Yeah, will do.
Indeed.
Is that any better?
Have you turned it off?
Yeah. Is that any better?
It is now, yeah, because you hadn't done it first. Go on.
There's no echo.
We'll get the Daily Post then. So what do you want to talk about, Ian?
Well, every problem you get to, you know, like a thump in the bloody heart. Nothing is worse than first contact.
Okay.
You can't get worse than first contact. Say you're going out to a pub and have a pub, you know, have a thump out, you know. You can't get worse than first contact. Then you've got to think about it afterwards. Did I do that right thing? Did I do the wrong thing?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's a point of view. Thank you for sharing it.
You can't get worse than first contact.
Okay.
You have a plan, and after first contact, it goes out.
Mm-hmm. Right. A famous general says, no plan ever survives first contact. I think that's what you're hinting at. Ian. Exactly. Thank you very much, Ian. How do Guy? Hello, Guy. How do Trevor? Hello, Trevor.
Hi, Alan, can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
Okay, sorry. I've been reading a book. It's Jules Verne. It's From the Earth to the Moon. It was made into a picture with Terry Thomas and Bernard Breslau in 1968. But it's from the 19th century. And I'm really interested in it because although it's in French, I'm getting a lot out of it. And it starts off with something called the Gun Club in North America in the 19th century, around about the time of the Civil War. And you pick up little things like the man that's running the club, the president. He wants to send a gang of people to the moon, 3 people to the moon, and he's going to do it by using the cannons that they make at the gun club, because the cannons are the best in the world. That's what the Americans were famous for, supposedly. Better than the British, better than the French, better than anyone else, making cannons or making projectiles. And yeah, it's very interesting. And the interesting thing, what got my attention more than anything, after reading the little bits I've done, was the fact that the Palma Gazette, in 1880, used the word spaceship to describe the Columbiad, the ship they're going to fire from a gun for. And that's the first use of the word spaceship ever. And I thought it was just fascinating. So, yeah, it may not interest you, Alan, but I just find things like that. When you look back at things like Jules Verne's got a fantastic mind, and when you read The Mysterious Island or 80 days around the world or 5 weeks in a balloon, his fantasy is just fantastic. I just find this one anyway, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm up to chapter 2 now, and I've just gone where they've been in the meeting, and he's a cold-blooded. This president's a cold-blooded, round-headed, descended from Roundheads, the natural enemies of the Stuarts and the men of the South, and yeah, I'm getting loud now. So
the word spaceship is Jules Verne probably. But the first, if you like, reference to a spaceship in the sense of a manned spacecraft usually goes to J.J. Astor's 1994 novel, A Journey in Other Worlds.
I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
However, spaceship also appears in the 1880 Palmar Gazette in reference to Jules Verne, 23 years before the first aeroplane took flight.
It's amazing, isn't it?
1894 is the first time it appears in a novel. It's all very confusing.
Well,
but
but
it's around that time the word came into being.
Well, I mean, this story's about firing it from a gun, but from what I can gather, from what I've read, the length of the gun doesn't. Reading onwards, it doesn't seem to be long enough. But they've got all the weights of the moon, they've got the consistency of the moon, they've got the density of the moon, they've got the photographs of the moon, they've got all these things, and he goes through it in the second chapter, he runs through all the things they've got, the president. And anyway, I'll just see how the story pans out. I'm sure it'll be good when it's done, but I mean, things like that. I mean, I'm reading another one at the moment about, well, Henrietta de Treville, but it's not Treville from Three Musketeers. It was like the captain of the guard that D'Artagnan goes to first of all with his letter that gets stolen and so forth. But he's only got a minor part, Treville. But Henry de Treville's a character in a play I'm reading at the moment, and she's lighting candles. Day Boogie's part 2. You're getting lots of candles. A Lumiere. That's graft, isn't it?
Sounds daft. Good on you. Thank you very much, kind sir. Have a good night. 0800 218 2255. I'm going to talk to Trevor, to Guy and to Calvin once we've enjoyed... That was Trevor. We're going to talk to Guy and Calvin once we've heard the Bee Gees whining on. It's hard to argue, isn't it, eh? How deep is your love indeed? 0800 218 2255. We're here to 1. It's getting on for 11:05, so there's a bit of a while yet. How do Guy?
Hi, Alan. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm doing awfully well, thank you.
Brilliant, excellent to hear. So me and my girlfriend were listening to what you're saying about the headlines and stuff. I think you mentioned about a woman trying to save a parrot near a cliff, something like that.
Well, she went for a walk with her parrot.
Yeah, sorry, with a parrot, yeah. So we were just thinking, if you had your own parrot in your house, what sort of catchphrases would it say? Because me and my girlfriend would be, "Where's that remote? Where's that remote?" Because we're always using the remote. So I'm not too sure what everyone else thinks, but what would your catchphrase be?
That's interesting, isn't it? What mine be? What would I say at home? What do I say frequently?
Everyone's got their own different thing that they say.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I never say, "Where's the remote?" Because I have one on the arm of my chair.
You're going to have to give me some advice then, because honestly, always losing it. Every day, every night, it's the same thing over and over.
You have to have
remote?
You have to have one each for a start.
Right, and then, down 1 second, let me get a pen.
Well, it's not that complicated. You won't need a pen. You have one each.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe. You'd have to come round to mine and see it for yourself. Honestly, we've been talking about we've been haunted or something like that, because it's always going, always going.
But it isn't. Right, it's always somewhere. You put it in the same place. So don't worry about your partners. Let your partners worry about theirs, but get one and keep it somewhere near where you sit. And
Brilliant.
Don't let it go anywhere else.
This is life changing. This is absolute life changing. Right, well, we'll see how it works this week. I'll let you know. I'll be back next week and let you know.
Let us know. And
I'll tally down how many times I've lost it.
Yeah.
See if it works. If it works, thank you very much.
They can't walk, so where you put them, that's where they are. Have a good night.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you do say to your partner, well, we're going to have one each and you're not touching mine, don't be surprised if you're alone for quite a while after that. Have a good night, Guy. How do Calvin?
All right, Alan.
I'm very well, thank you.
What I'd like to talk about is...
Well, before you do, can I get you to turn... Before you do, can I get you to turn off whatever the device is that you've got on at the moment that I hear myself
all
coming
right,
back?
the radio. Yeah, hang on.
If that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, is that better?
Yeah, that's grand, thank you.
Yeah, what I want to talk about is for you to confirm what I've been hearing in the media is true or not true. So I found it very hard to believe. So the guy that spent 17 years in prison for something he hasn't done, has been acquitted now, is being asked to pay for his board and lodgings. Which buffoon has come out with this?
Well, that is government policy. We don't know in this particular case whether he will be asked to, but when a person who is released from prison, having had their conviction overturned and so were not then guilty of the offence and has done time, they are sometimes asked to pay from their compensation for their bed and board all the time they were in prison.
Bed and board? I'm sure, yeah, right. Yeah. Bed and board, yeah, right, yeah. I want to go to prison, yeah, I'll be on paper. I cannot believe what I'm hearing, but I mean, there must be some truth in it.
It is true.
Who's come out with the suggestion?
Well,
I don't know a lot.
It's been around for quite a long time, so I don't know who specific. Yes, please don't swear. It's been around for a very long time. It's been around for a very long time. I don't know who originally came up with it, and it does, in many people's minds, sound absolutely stupid and disgraceful, but that's what it is. The chap himself, who was released from prison a little while ago but had his conviction overturned in the week, made a very good point, and he said, if you did commit the crime and you're sent to jail, when you come out, they don't charge you a penny. But if you go to jail for something you didn't do and they eventually end up saying, you're right, you didn't do it and we're letting you go, then they say, give us the money for your porridge. It's extraordinary. And I might have read it rather than heard it, but they said, look, no, it was on the Today programme this morning. They said, when you're in prison, you don't have to buy clothes, you don't have to buy food, you don't pay rates, you don't pay rent, you don't pay electric. He kept saying these things, and I kept saying, well, fine, but it's not his fault he's in prison. It's the government's fault.
Exactly.
In this man's case, it's the lying, filthy dogs at Greater Manchester Police.
You know what I mean? I just can't believe what...
Well,
that they're coming out with this sort of nonsense in modern day Britain.
Isn't it? It's just this case, which is a very dramatic case, if you like, has brought it to the fore. But when a senior Tory MP, a former minister, suggested, I think he actually asked the Home Office, were they going to redress this because it was disgraceful? The Home Office said there are no plans to look at it again. In other words, their plan is to keep it as it is.
But I mean, rightly so, the guy will get quite a bit of money, compensation. And some guy was saying, I heard it was on a talk show, he was saying, well, you can pay out his compensation. I said, pay? You shouldn't have to pay anything.
I mean, it beggars belief if it weren't for the fact that it's true.
That's all. This is the balmy thing about it. You know, am I really hearing this? You know, I thought it was like a joke, some sort of joke.
No, it's not.
What can they shock us with now, sort of thing? It's true. So anyway,
Well, I mean, the Home Office have said there are no plans at the moment to look again at it, but don't be surprised if by the end of the week that position has changed. Good on you, Calvin.
Well,
good to talk to you. Have a good night, mate. 0800 218 2255. What do you think about this whole person not guilty? We're not talking about blokes and women that have done the offence. We're talking about people who are convicted of the offence because the police lied and hid evidence, which appears to be the case here, and not for the first time in the police. This time it's Greater Manchester Police that are getting it, but let's face it, the Met, the West Yorkshires, they've all had their day in the dirty light. And it's Greater Manchester Police's turn this time, but lying and cheating and hiding evidence, meaning two things. One, the man that didn't do it goes to prison for something he didn't do, and the person that did do it is still out there. And Greater Manchester Police are now going to say, I'm sure, well, we'll now reopen the investigation and start to look. And you think, yeah, and what are the chances of finding it now? Particularly when, if you found the person who you now think actually did do it, and you put them in front of a jury, how are you going to convince the jury that you're right this time? I mean, last time it was the accused, the guilty person, as it were, was picked out at an identity parade. Well, if they had another one, first of all, the person's, 17 years older, and the person who picked him out of the identity parade got it long last time. So how's the jury going to believe that? The chances of somebody else getting sent to jail for that murder, just logic says, are very, very slim. But we can hope. 0800 218 2255. You want to comment on that? You want to talk about something else? Feel free. Just pick up your phone and have your say. We were talking about asylum seekers earlier, and the courts have declared that putting asylum seeker children in hotels, without accompaniment, of course, is unlawful. Common decency also says that it's utterly disgraceful. How do Susan?
Hello, Alan.
Hiya.
Hello. Yeah, you were asking before about how can we stop the boats.
Right.
I was just going to ask you, if you don't mind,
I don't.
What kind of boats are we trying to stop? I mean, in my head, they're like a motorised dinghy. Is that
exactly
what most of these? Sorry?
That's what a lot of them are. Yes.
Yeah, a motorised dinghies that hold about 30 people, and then somebody picks them up off these dinghies.
Yeah.
Now, these I don't know how many dinghies we must have moored, along the coast here from collecting them up over, the years that we've been having migrants come across. But my thought is, surely we can find out where these dinghies are being made. There must be some kind of way of speaking to people that have come across and find out, how they've managed to get or how they were contacted. I mean, once they're over here, I know a lot of them have thrown away passports and probably don't speak English very well, but I'm sure they have interpreters. And my thought is, surely in all this time there should be more news coming out about where these boats are coming from, how they get into the beach. They must be being towed, put in some vehicle of some sort to be brought to the beach.
Well, they are. They're being brought to the beach. The people and the boats are being brought to the beach, often by criminals.
Well, I know probably the French aren't too bothered, but we have, like you say, we have paid them a lot of money to do some work for, trying to stop them. I mean, is there no information? We never get any information, apart the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. We get the same old thing, but we never get anything fresh. We never get any, why can't they sort of tell us where these boats are being made? Why can't they say, are we getting
where they're being made isn't really relevant. The boats
Why not?
are... Well, what are you going to do? Let's say they're made at the Allan Beswick factory in Czechoslovakia. Just for the sake of it, there they are. So the Allan Beswick factory in Czechoslovakia sells rubber boats. What are you going to do now that you know that's where the boats come from? Are you going to stop the Allan Beswick factory from making them?
Well, we could at least find out who's buying them.
Well, we know who's buying them and sometimes stealing them. Crooks.
And can't we do nothing about that?
Well, yes, but you may have noticed in this country, like many other Western countries, crime is growing and is almost unstoppable.
But
I mean, how do you do? Let's say we're still with the... I mean, this is a scenario. I'm inventing all this. But let's say somebody goes along to the Allan Beswick rubber dinghy emporium in Czechoslovakia and says, can I have 500, please? Why do you want 500? Because I'm a retail outlet and I sell them. I've got branches. Okay, here's your 500. So was that a crime?
It could be.
It could be, but was it? Because are you going to say to the Allan Beswick emporium, don't sell them to anybody other than bona fide sailors? How are you going to know they're bona fide sailors?
Come on, Alan, you know as much as me. If somebody wanted to find out, this is, I know things are so bad with the police, and it's probably the same in France. I mean, to a certain extent, France aren't too bothered about them coming across because it's less for them to worry about. But somewhere along the line, we're spending so much money. We're probably, it's all being held, a big lie to us, really.
Do you know that France and Germany have more asylum seekers than the United Kingdom?
So I believe.
Considerably more.
Yeah, I believe Germany are in recession.
Yes, they are. Not for that, but for lots of other things. But yes.
Well, this is because of the Schengen agreement that they opened all the borders. Now we voted Brexit.
They can travel between the borders within the Schengen agreement, within the Schengen area without difficulty. Yes, that is a fact. But most asylum seekers that land in France appear to stay there. Quite a lot want to come to England or to Britain, presumably because they speak British.
Well, perhaps they do speak British, but when we've seen these pictures now of tents or marquees, going to be erected, and we saw a vague shot of people with mattresses. I mean, this was what was going on in France. I saw it a long time ago where people were living in tents, outside. We knew this was coming. And we've done very little to stop it. We could have done something.
When you say we've done very little, can I invite you to change that to we have achieved very little? Because they've done plenty. There's lots and lots been done. Well,
they haven't done much. They haven't done much at all. I disagree with you there, Alan.
Okay,
we haven't done much. All we've done is send our boats out and watch the French frigates, allow them to come across, and then exchange. We don't know half of what's going on, and we don't know what exactly the reason is for it. I mean, I do watch some of the foreign news, and what do you want to happen? I mean, yes, I know you want the boats to stop, and so does the government, and they have an awful lot of resources, and with all those resources, they still haven't managed it. So, what do you want to happen? What do you think the government can do? Well, that's why I rang up, because the question, you said, how can we stop these boats? How can we stop the boats?
Yeah.
Now, my thought was, we could stop them if we wanted to. I mean,
by doing
do we
what?
want to stop drug dealers? I mean, if we wanted to, we could. But a lot of this is just let go for an easy... I don't honestly think we've got the resources to do it, for one thing. But the thing is, where will it end?
Now I'm in a difficult position, because you said we could stop them, but we haven't got the resources. What could we do to stop them was the question, and you said...
Well, we've got to find the resources.
Well, okay, but then spend them on what? What can we do is the question. Let's pretend there's a bottomless pit of money that they're prepared to spend on it. What do they need to do?
Well, first of all, like I say, we've got to get hold of those criminals, first of all. I mean, from your side of the angle, somebody is having to pay these criminals to come on the boat. Now, what they're paying them, I don't know. Surely, this is one of the questions that obviously they must be asking. But we don't know. We're not told nothing.
Well, they pay. Well, if you can read around and find out, they pay often as much as £1,000.
Well, if somebody's got £1,000,
well, they haven't. That's the thing. The thousand. If you stopped the people who are supplying the boats, they would simply. You mentioned drug dealers. They'll simply be replaced by other people supplying the boats. The offence begins back where these people come from. That's where it begins.
Well, to be honest with you, what I've seen, I mean, when you've seen people coming across to Italy, on that awful sea. I mean, we saw that horrible incident where that boat with all the women and children wasn't, it sank. And, we don't know how many people are killed, by trying to get over here. But, it is it's a very sad situation, all in all. But the fact is, we're only an island, and we love, I don't know about you, but I love where I live. I love my home. To see these pictures, and I watch GB News. I know BBC doesn't show all that goes on, but you have to watch GB News to get a little bit more. But even they, you don't come up, they come with the same news day in, day out, day in and day out. They don't actually have anybody over in France reporting. I'd like to see some of the British reporters over there. Actually, there must be somebody. I find journalism's very. They're just lazy. A lot of journalists today. They don't make news. They just repeat the same thing over it. I mean, there could be so many stories about people that are coming across. We know nothing. None of the stories are really told about people who are living in the hotels. Really, it would be nice just to hear some of their stories. And as I say, really, I think if we wanted to, but we know we can't even police our own country at the moment when you see all this shoplifting going on and they can't stop that. But we are. I just worry that all our green belt is going to go. I love our country, but the thought of all these houses, saying we haven't got enough houses, well, we know why we haven't got enough houses. Because we've got many more people coming into the country. So
do you know what? One of the biggest problems as to why we've got no houses is people keep getting divorced. So houses, families that had one house now need two. And then they marry somebody else and they get divorced again. That's 4 houses.
Yeah, absolutely. And also holiday homes as well. A lot of people have got holiday homes. And
indeed they have.
I'm glad to hear that they're going to be paying more council tax.
And that's really paying them off and good.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, we can bring in money. We can. I mean, I'm pretty much, I would say, slightly right to the centre on things. I'm not a lefty. I'm slightly right. That's why I watch GB News, because they are slightly right. But as I say, I just love my country, and I just, I love the Lions, the girls playing the football.
How about, given that you love your football, your country, how about instead of saying we don't want any of these people in our country?
No, I'm not saying that, Alan. I didn't say that. You're saying that and trying.
Well, I'm just. You're saying we haven't got the room for them, so you're clearly saying they don't fit, and we haven't got any room, and there aren't enough houses.
That word "clearly" is used too often. This is another word. There's this really again.
Well, let me try so I can get your view, so I don't misquote you. Am I correct in that you believe we can't have too many people coming into the country because there's nowhere for them to live? Is that your point of view?
Yeah, Yeah, it can be. Yeah, you can say.
Well,
that.
I'm not asking you to invent one. I'm asking you if that is it, because you seem to refer to it earlier. Green and pleasant land, the green belt, and all of that. Nowhere to live. There aren't enough houses. So is that part of your view? I don't have to. I neither agree nor disagree. I'm just a vacuum. No.
Do you have an opinion?
No.
Why not?
Why would I have an opinion?
You're British. Why don't you have an opinion?
I'm British and therefore entitled not to.
Well, I can ask you because that's part of the programme. You say
well,
you can
I'm not
ask
stopping you from asking. I'm giving you an answer. You just don't seem to
you are giving
like
a very good answer. You're not
well,
really
it's not
being
good.
Honest. You must have an opinion. Why?
If you wish to call me a liar, feel free. You asked me what is my opinion.
Well,
I said I don't.
You have got
okay,
an
well that's
opinion.
fine. Well, that's fine then. Well, you want to know what it is. How about I'm not going to tell you, which is rather less mature.
Well, I'd rather you say that.
Well,
I'd rather you be honest.
Well, if that's your version of honesty, I'm happy for you to have that. I don't really care. If that will shut you up asking a stupid question, I'm happy to give you that answer. I'll give you any answer you like. What is my opinion? And then, what is my opinion? And I said, I'm not giving it to you.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
Good.
As long as you're honest. You were honest to say that, but you weren't.
Who cares? But Susan, let us go back to... Susan, I haven't got an opinion. I haven't. I don't care.
Don't you?
No, I don't.
Why don't you care?
I don't have to tell you why I don't care, and I don't even know why I don't care, but I really... Most things that happen in this world, Susan, I can't be asked about. And this is one of them.
Well, I know why, because you haven't got much of a family.
What's that got to do with anything?
A lot. If you have a family, you do care.
How do you know how much family I've got, Susan?
Because you never talk about it much.
Well, there are lots of things I don't talk about.
You don't talk about anything.
So I mustn't have anything then. If I don't talk about family, I mustn't have one. I don't talk about anything, so I mustn't have anything. I wouldn't want to be rude
to you, Alan. I wouldn't want to be rude, but I mean...
Well, you're not being rude. You have to matter for you.
I could. Well,
Susan,
I'm not being rude, no, because I'm stopping myself from being rude.
Susan, for you to be rude to me, you have to matter, and quite frankly, you don't.
Are you going to put the phone down on me?
No.
Oh.
I'm just explaining why it is impossible for you to be rude to me, because you don't matter one iota.
Can we move on to another subject then?
If it's going to be as stupid as this, no, but let's have a try.
What was stupid about...
Your opinion.
Saying about the boat?
Your opinion.
What was wrong with me saying about the boat?
It was stupid.
All I said, wouldn't it have been a good idea to find out where the boats are made?
Yes.
And that's a stupid question.
Yes.
You think it is? Well,
yes, I keep saying yes, so I think we've established that that's what I think. You said you wanted to go on to another subject. Do it now or get off. I don't care which.
You can be rude. People
get off. You chose get off. You were offered the opportunity. You thought you'd just talk about something else. Sling your hook. How do Glenn?
Hello, everybody.
Very well, thank you.
What is that? Before I got my job at the supermarket, I was a steward at the Stanley Football Club for 4 years.
Okay.
About 13 courses left. And they're now recruiting stewards for the new season. And I rung them up and a guy's seen me next Saturday morning for interviews and with an application for him. You get paid about 50 quid a match, and I spoke to the big strong manager at where I work, and he can't see a problem with it. And he's it's something different, isn't it? It's like I've been working at supermarket for 13 years. Quite enjoy it. It's something different, and and the grounds had since I work, it's had millions of pounds spent on, and it's got a new club. It's complete transformation when I worked there 13 years ago. And Eric Watley was there when I was there, and God bless him, he's passed away now, and it's like it's something different, and what does that on?
Well, so fine, if that's what you want to do, and they want you to do it, and it won't affect your full-time job, then, yeah, get on with it.
Yeah. Well, it's something different, I know things
Let me just point something out to you, just as a matter of interest. You frequently come on and tell me about your difficulty in getting pips.
I've got that Monday on. I've got that Monday.
Well,
I've got that pip assessment on Monday morning.
So, Glenn, when you're trying to convince the authorities that you are sufficiently disabled one way or another to warrant financial assistance, and you're now saying that you're thinking you might go for a second job and add it to the one you've already got.
I have to give mouth shut.
Well, I'm not suggesting any mouth shutting or lying or anything else. I'm just pointing out that having two jobs wouldn't make it easier to get pips.
No, it wouldn't. No. But there again, I've got the possessor Monday. I'm not going to the internet Saturday, so I can get my shut like that, do I? But there we go. I mean, you get to watch Game 3 and it's something different, isn't it? I mean, I didn't change the scenery. In past 12 years, it seemed like I've never been up Jackie's Island much, only a bonfire and that. And it's something different, it's something different, I change the scenery. I'm not job at food, but like back of my hand, that's up the way. And it's a change, isn't it? Change the scenery. And, I hope I get it, Alan. I really do. And, I know the job's not a good job. You just keep an eye on things and stand there with your black trousers on, white shirt. And, I hope successful. And,
well, good luck to you. Don't be building your hopes up, but good luck to you.
Another thing, Alan. These trucks that BBC local radio.
Mm-hmm.
And, why are they doing this now? Rail lines have been going 50 years, and now there's going to be no rail lines after 2 o'clock. Why are they doing this now? I've heard of John Gilmore. It's very sad what's happening on. It's very sad. And John Gilmore texted me on Facebook and said that to me. It's very sad, Glenn. What does that?
Well, I can't speak for John or even comment on what John has said. In answer to the question, why are they doing it, it's a very complicated answer, but the way that people now listen to radio is changing massively, and they're trying to realign BBC local radio to fit in with people's listening habits. So the days of people, if you like, sitting round the radio listening to the programmes are numbered. Fewer and fewer people do that.
Do you know these new shows? What are they going to like? These new radio shows?
Well, I've no idea what they're going to be like.
So nobody knows what the show's going to like and nothing.
Well, I'm sure somebody does, but they don't tell me. I'm just a minnow.
Yeah, surprise. Have a nice time, Paul.
I'll do my best, Glenn, and good luck on your Monday and then on Saturday. How do Frank?
Hi, Alan.
Hi.
Hi, Alan. Good to meet you. Yeah, I rang up while you had that issue about the immigrants coming up on the boats. I know it's a contentious issue, so... But my sort of thought is that all the boat people are coming because they've got issues in other countries. Now, the problems start in other countries. For example, Afghanistan and Syria. Why is the United Nations toothless, in effect, to try and prevent these atrocities happening in these countries?
Because they don't have that much power in other countries.
Well, exactly. Why?
You mentioned Afghanistan. Well, of course, there were Western troops in Afghanistan. Before that, there were Russian troops in Afghanistan. And quite frankly, between the West and the East, they've made it a damn sight worse. So
they have.
I don't suppose the United Nations have got much to offer.
Well, there's countries all over the world these people come from, even like Palestine, parts of Africa. And the issues there, they've got problems there with people being persecuted and bullied. The things like gay, people who are gay and things like that. But we need to be sorting the problems there. And then, in effect, you would help to prevent these people coming here in such dire circumstances. I mean, if they had to come here to escape persecution, I'm all for them staying here and being looked after. I've not got an issue with that. But my issue is we should be sorting the problem out before it even starts.
Well, indeed, perhaps we should. One of the problems with that is that in many people's view, the United Kingdom has decided to spend less on foreign aid than it promised to do and that it was doing. And that foreign aid was supposed to make foreign countries more livable. And one of the benefits of that might be that fewer people would want to come here. But unfortunately, no longer the case. We still sell as many arms as we can, but we're not very...
I agree.
By many accounts, we're not doing the charitable work that we're supposed to do.
It's been reduced greatly because of the economic situation, I get that.
Well,
it just seems to me as well, I suppose my main question is the United Nations is toothless because they don't seem to be able to get control of these sort of countries.
Well, I mean, they can't. The United Nations can do nothing without universal approval. So if the United Nations said, well, we're going to send some troops into Afghanistan, fine. The United Nations doesn't have any troops, so it would then have to go to its member countries and say, will you give us some troops? And I suspect China would say, actually, no. Russia would say, actually, no.
Definitely,
America would probably say, actually, no. So,
not these days, no.
Well, indeed, it's these days we're talking about. So I'm afraid that the United Nations is a cracking idea, but there are certain countries within it, the major powers, who have a veto. So if they don't agree with what the United Nations employees, if you like, are suggesting, then they just veto the vote. And they just say, well, you can have all the votes you like, but we're saying, nope, you're not doing that, we veto it.
What is the answer? How can we influence matters abroad if you've got no power, have you, to influence matters abroad?
Perhaps not none, but your powers are limited. And our long-term system of saying we don't agree with you, so we're going to invade you, hasn't really been fruitful.
No, you get called a colonialist and all this stuff, don't you? Which is a bit extreme, but we do go in on some countries, I do agree. We've got Niger now. That country's in turmoil now. The same thing going to happen. People are going to leave the country because of the turmoil there.
They may well do so.
But we haven't got we've no control over it. And people don't want to leave the country, do they? They don't necessarily want to come here. They want to stay in their own country.
Yes, but if that means being starved to death or tortured and imprisoned, perhaps you skedaddle.
Yeah.
I mean, we in the West, particularly in the United Kingdom, where we are one of the freest, we're not free by any means, but one of the freest countries on the planet, where you and I are having a conversation now, you get a bullet through your forehead if you did this in China. You get a bullet through your forehead if you did it in Russia. So you and I are having this conversation. We're free to do so. We're a very, very comfortable country. We're a quite comfortably off country. A poor person in this country would be wealthy in other parts of the world. So we're all right. So we have these lovely chats. But if I said to you, well, okay, give up half your wealth along with everybody else in the country and we'll give it to the foreigners and then they'll stop coming here, what would your answer be?
Yeah, I get you. It's a difficult question, I must admit.
It is a difficult question, and nobody's found the answer to it yet, least of all this or previous governments.
And the other problem, obviously, with immigrants and illegal immigrants is our services are being... They're just full. Houses are difficult.
But you say that, Frank, but I don't know which services you mean. Let's take the National Health Service. It wasn't for the foreigners or people of foreign descent. We wouldn't have one.
Oh, I agree with that.
One of the things they're doing at the moment, our government at the moment, that keeps going, we're going to stop the boats, we're going to stop Johnny Foreigner coming here. They've just had a referendum to make sure we have control of our own borders, and now actually talking about giving visas to plumbers and joiners and builders and all those sorts of people, craftsmen. Why? Because we haven't got enough. Because when we said throw out the foreigners, we threw them out, and now we realise they were doing all the bloody work.
Well, that's legal immigration. The main, what people get very emotive about is illegal immigration, isn't it?
Well, it's only illegal. The trouble is, Frank, it's only illegal immigration if you say it's against the law. If you don't say it's against the law, it's not illegal immigration anymore, it's just immigration. I wonder how many people sitting right now in a hotel bedroom has got a skill that could be employed. I'm not saying we should change the rules, it's not my place to. But wouldn't it be silly if there was a waiter sat in an hotel, unable to work because it's against the law for him or her to do so, and downstairs in the hotel they were looking for waiters?
Oh, yes. That's a very good point.
It's a problem. It's a problem.
Well, part of what I was talking about with services, like housing especially, well, you know the housing situation at the minute. My daughter's been trying to look for rented accommodation, and because so many people, a lot of people coming from Hong Kong as well, which is perfectly legal, but it's just 40 or 50 families looking at one property.
Yeah.
So we have to do something about that as well, haven't we? That we haven't got.
Well, you may remember a prime minister. Most people have forgotten her. Her name was Margaret Thatcher. Some people remember her, not many. She was years ago. But this woman called Margaret Thatcher decided that it would be a cracking idea if we made the councils sell the property that they'd spent thousands and thousands and thousands of taxpayers' money building and give it away, sell it for a song to the people living in it. And they sold it to a song for the people living in it, which meant there was now a house not available for people on the housing waiting list. It's not available because Joe Bloke owns it. And then along comes Mr. Money and said, you know that house you just paid $4,000 for? Yeah. Well, I'll give you 20 for it. Oh, bloody hell, right, here, thanks very much, thank you. So now there's 16,000 in pocket, and the house is available to Mr. Richman to rent it out for whatever price he likes. That's a simplification, but if you bugger about with stuff and change it, it often gets worse.
That was a subject I was talking to my mate about the other night in the pub, and we sort of talked about it. We sort of concluded that the local authorities didn't do enough after those council houses were sold. They didn't do enough to restock the housing.
Frank, they weren't allowed to. They were forbidden by that. You know that woman I mentioned earlier, you may have forgotten her again, Margaret Thatcher. When they passed the legislation that councils must sell off their properties to long-term tenants, they were also told that the money they get for them, even though it was peanuts compared to the value of the property, they were not allowed to spend on building more properties. That was the law.
That doesn't make sense, does it?
Yes, it does. If you don't want council houses, it makes perfect sense. And they didn't want council houses, like they didn't want miners.
Yeah.
The trouble with council houses, they're full of bloody poor people.
I know.
And they don't want any of them either.
Me and my mates go out on a Thursday night in the pub. We're all about your age, and we try and resolve all the world's problems. But it's difficult.
If you and your mates are my age, Frank, I'm afraid we're the buggers that made the problems. No, I am. But keep it quiet, Frank, because people will start blaming us. Have a good night, mate. 0800 218 2255. Just occasionally you have to own up, don't you? I'll do Jessica.
Hello.
Hello.
When you're young, you think everything's good, bad, black, white, right, wrong. Everything's so simple.
I know.
And when you get to our age, you realise it isn't.
It isn't. We're the only simple things in the whole equation.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm glad they're coming in rubber dinghies, because when we went to their country, we went in gunboats.
Well, that is true, yes.
Anyway, my greater mighty intellect is failing me, so I need to borrow some of your brain cells.
No, try.
Well, this morning I decided to have an egg sandwich for my breakfast. I got an egg out of the cupboard, ordinary hen's egg. Cracked it open, there was no yolk in it, it was all white. Any idea why?
No.
Oh. It's going to puzzle me for ages, this.
I don't know what to say.
The idle mind is the devil's playground. I've not been doing a lot of thinking lately, so I've been out of practice.
My mother used to say, the devil finds work for idle hands. I think it's the same expression, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, well, I tried.
Well, not to worry. Good to talk to you.
Oh, by the way, I moved into a ground floor flat.
Aye.
Because I couldn't get up and downstairs, it was arranged for the ambulance people to take me in a chair down the stairs.
Yeah.
And, well, a friend from the estate rang me to see how I'd moved in. Apparently, I've been found dead, I've had a stroke, I was found unconscious, and I was attacked.
But apart from that, you're fine. Deary me.
Yeah, it
is funny.
So interesting. Oh, well, thank you, Alan.
Have a good night. 0800 218 2255 if you want to join. It is interesting, isn't it, how just how the rumour begins, and they get purchased, and then you can't stop the beggars. You just can't. 0800 218 2255. You want to join us? Good. Pick your phone up, have your say. Talk about absolutely anything. I'll do Cliff.
Evening, Alan. You okay?
Evening. I'm very well, thank you.
Maybe the next egg that Jessica cracks will be a double yolker, and then she'll make up for it.
That'll balance it out, yeah. It is interesting.
That'll balance it out, yes.
Why does an egg not have a yolk?
I've never seen that. Never seen
nor
that.
I. Nor I.
No. They must be for meringues.
Special meringue eggs, yeah, absolutely. Those
yeah. For the pavlova. There you go. Yes, I just wanted to touch on. I wanted to touch on the subjects that have kind of been spoken about tonight, and over the last few weeks, we've heard a lot. Well, I have anyway, of the talking about people coming from different countries and the traumas that they have encountered, and dealing with and helping with their traumas, things that they've seen in their own countries, which led me to think about the amount of things that have happened in this country, obviously, especially with the Troubles and the bombing and the maiming that happened not only in Northern Ireland but also in the mainland, and the lack of counselling and help that people actually got when you think about it. Our first aid responders, our emergency responders and stuff, a lot of them got no counselling at all with the things that they turned up to and had to encounter, and they got very little help at all. Even when you think about the Manchester bombing, and it became quite clear that a lot of the young victims at the arena bombing were failed. They got very little help after the trauma of what they'd seen and experienced. They got no help, and that's come out as well. So I just think over the years, the things that have happened in our own country and what people had experienced, they didn't receive much help, really, did they?
No, they didn't, and it is. I don't know what you say to that, really, other than the whole thing about migration, immigration, and the people that have to do with it, they get very little help, if you like.
Yes. You know, you know that people can come from, as you're speaking there about Afghanistan, and I'm sure things people have seen there, and now in Nigeria and stuff, that things that are going on there, and you see, we've seen mass graves and stuff on the news recently where they've been dumping bodies in certain parts of in Central Africa, things that have been going on that don't just hit the headlines anymore, and people come, they have gone through very traumatic experiences and seen awful scenes, and I understand that people will say, we have to help with these people and the trauma and the aftermath, but we had people who went through some horrendous things in this country, especially people who drove ambulances, the fire services and stuff, who turned up to bombings in Belfast and right across Northern Ireland, who got no help, no help.
I mean,
it was just seen as being part of the job, wasn't it, Alan?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I hesitate to use this phrase because it's so tried, tested, and worn. And that was how it was then. I mean, the men that came back from war and the women that were also involved in it, there was no counselling, nothing to help them. It was just a case of get on with it. Now, it's slightly different coming back from war because you were coming back en masse. So, when you went down the pub, the blokes in the pub had been through something not dissimilar to what you've been through. So there was a sort of collective camaraderie in those people. So that helped many, but not by any means all.
Yeah, and yet so many people say that, grandfathers and stuff, and the great-grandfathers never spoke to their families about anything they'd seen and didn't want to speak about it.
That is very, very true.
Absolutely, they knew nothing of what they had experienced going to war and stuff. They just because they never told, their children or anything. They just didn't want to talk about it
because they didn't want to put on to those people that they love the horror of what they've had to endure. But often those who would not talk about it, when they were amongst their colleagues, they would talk about it, not in a way that many would describe as, if you like, the kind of thing that a counsellor would do. But I can remember sitting with my dad in the Labour Club with his mates and listening to their banter, and I can remember one of the classic lines was the lads all saying to one of them, my dad's best mate as it happens, but one of them, who was a submariner, and they used to say to him, "What are you whinging about? You hid under the bloody sea for the whole of the war." And I know, and they know that he didn't. They were, very, very courageous things that they did. But that kind of camaraderie, that almost ribald way of dealing with what you've endured and what you've witnessed with people that have been there as well, it actually has some kind of emotional support element to it, bizarrely.
Yeah, got them through it, didn't it?
Yeah, and still was doing, 50 years later. And it didn't work for everybody by any stretch of the imagination. And many of the people who were in the First World, Second World and the subsequent wars had awful trouble coming to terms with it. Awful trouble, and inevitably. But there was because the whole nation was at war, it was a lot easier. Not easy, but easier than when only part of the nation is at war. You came back from the Falklands and you went in the pub and everybody in the pub hadn't been there with you. They hadn't experienced it. They had nothing to offer. They would ask you lots of questions about it and pat you on the back and call you a hero and well done and all that. But that might not be the best thing to hear. I mean, the whole way that people who do extraordinary things are accommodated in society is sadly lacking, whether it be the police officer who disarms a gunman, the firefighter that runs in a building and saves a child, and all the rest of it. These days, they do have support, but the person who did it still got to live with it. Still got to live with it. I mean, I've said this before many, many times. My dad was at Arnhem, which is one of the celebrated battles, if you like, of the Second World War, and people talk about it of that generation in exultant terms. The men who were at Arnhem did incredible things. But when you talk to my dad, he would say, well, in the end, we just ran away. We ran away. We ran out of ammunition. We ran out of supplies. We ran out of food. So we swam across the river and some surrendered. The commanding officer lined them all up and said, look, we've got nothing. We've nothing to fight with, nothing to eat. So, you can surrender or you can swim the river. Those are your options. If you're wounded, then, you're going to... The idea was that the German army would look after you and very often did in the case of those that were wounded, the fighting men. But, otherwise you swim the river, take your chances in the river. And my dad's view of that was we were running away. It's just, the mindset that some of those people created to deal with that which they were required to do was just extraordinary. And it's still going on. And it's harder now, as you say, because there isn't this collective camaraderie. People coming back from Northern Ireland or the RUC or the dealing with what was going on.
Yeah, that's all very much overlooked.
I mean, people working in the ambulance service had their vehicles taken from them by armed men. What? And it's just, it's horrible, absolutely horrible, and they had to deal with it. And how, God alone knows.
Just a point I wanted to raise, because I think people in the United Kingdom have had their own fair share of trauma, but the help wasn't there. The help wasn't there, unfortunately.
No.
And
regrettably still isn't.
Thanks for letting me make the point. No.
It's all right.
Okay.
Good on you. 0800 218 2255. We still don't know why Jessica's egg didn't have a yolk, which is outrageous. We could do with knowing. If you know, give us a call. 0800 218 2255. How do Oscar?
Hello, Alan. Probably just a freak of nature, I would have thought, the yolkless egg. But, there are certain freaks of nature out there. I won't say any more about that, because I wanted to talk to you today about hot weather. We're getting all these reports that the weather is very hot, certainly in certain places. It doesn't seem to be very hot here in the UK, and it seems to be quite a dismal July that we've gone through. But
it was quite hot in June. I wasn't here, so it's hard to say.
Yes.
But it was hot in June, hotter than it would normally be.
Yes, I think that's right. It was a very flaming June. But I suppose we have to take the reports on face value that there's a lot of heat around. Some bloke was talking about global boiling the other day. The globe is boiling. You're on fire, and we're all boiling. Be afraid. Be very afraid. The problem that I have with it, though, is that what we are talking about with these temperatures that are being reported in the media is that these are essentially scientific measurements, aren't they? Temperature, you're talking about temperature, and when they talk about record breaking, this kind of thing, that's what that means, is you're looking at temperature against time. So you got the scientific study of one particular characteristic against another characteristic. If you plot that as a graph, you can put temperature on the vertical scale, and you have time running along the horizontal scale, and you see a graph of how things get hotter and they get colder, they get hotter, they get colder. But the problem with that is that if you are doing science, which is what that is, that when you measure one thing and you're trying to do comparisons, the rule, a fairly strict rule, if you're trying to do a scientific study, is that you measure one thing, but you leave everything else exactly the same. You don't allow other things to change while you're making those measurements that you're making in order to conduct your comparisons. Now, the big problem with that is when they start talking about record-breaking temperatures, and they start talking about record-breaking temperatures over all sorts of periods of time, whether it be 10 years, 50 years, 150 years, thousands of years, and they talk about how the temperatures that we are supposedly seeing now are breaking records. But in scientific terms, there is no way, absolutely no way at all, that they can be making those kinds of claims. There's no way in science that you can be making those kind of announcements. It's just false. It's totally unreliable, totally bogus to say that. And of course the reason is that, well, there's several aspects to it, but it's all to do with the way the measurements are taken. The instruments that you're using to take the measurements now that are being reported as supposedly breaking records, the actual thermometers themselves are not the same thermometers that were taking those measurements even 10 years ago, let alone 1,000 years ago. So it's just a lie. And I know you say, well, you know, a lie is where you've deliberately given false information as opposed to someone making an error or something like that. But this is just so obviously untrue, falsified, and bogus.
So is it your contention, then, that because these lies are being told, in your view, that the temperatures that many people believe are burning their skin in foreign lands are also lying?
Well, no, I mean, if someone says, I've got sunburn, then you can look at their skin and say, have you got sunburn? If you've got sunburn and they say they've got sunburn, then they're not lying. But what I'm talking about is the reports that are being thrown at people, thrust upon people in the media, that what is happening is that the world is boiling.
Well, that claim, I've forgotten who said it. It was one of the greenwallers said it. One of the international greenwallers said,
Antonio Guterres.
Yeah. Well, that was an unfortunate expression, because first of all, it's not boiling, because boiling is related to liquids generally. And so even if it's rock, it could be liquid, but then it'd be a lot more than what we call boiling. So that was a very clumsy statement by an irresponsible statement, some might say. But the issue about whether the world is on average hotter now than it was 10 years ago, are you disputing that when you say they are lying? Are you saying that they are purposefully fiddling it, or are you saying that their claim is erroneous because it's not a fair comparison?
Yes, I'm saying that they are purposefully, there is an agenda at work here to actually try to terrify people, and we've seen them try to do this with other things.
Well, let's concentrate on this one, so it's so much easier for the simple mind like mine.
Yeah, well, they are trying to frighten you, because it's all your fault, you see.
But, well, okay,
it's all your...
But to what end would they try to frighten? What do they gain by making us all afraid? I mean, the man with the 12 bore in a back alley wants to frighten you so he can have your wallet. So persons who want to frighten you want to do it for a reason. What do you think is their reason for frightening us?
Compliance with net zero and all that kind of stuff, which is part of the globalist agenda, Agenda 2030. United
What would they? If they let us assume they are correct, and they lie us into believing that we ought to cut this, that, and the other. My question is, what do they benefit from that? What do they get out of it?
They get the implementation of the agenda that they've been working towards for many years.
But what is the benefit of that agenda?
The world looks more like the kind of world that they want to live in, as opposed to the kind of world that we want to live in. But hang on a minute,
you seem to be suggesting that they are lying. So they're well, okay. I'm not doubting it. I'm just dealing with what you say. I mean, I got fussed either way. But you're saying they are lying to satisfy an agenda, but the agenda seems to be that they want us to burn fewer fossil fuels, have fewer motor cars and the like. Why would they want that if the consequence that they're attributing to those things is not correct? What do they get out of it? Like the man with the 12 bore. His or her benefit, if it happens to be a woman with a 12 bore, their benefit is your wallet, which is fairly clear. What benefit does the person who lies to you to make you get rid of your car and install one of those bloody awful heat exchange, which I will never have? What do they get from it? What is in their inbox as a result?
Well, the kind of world they want is they're not really bothered about carbon dioxide and
so what world do they want us? That's my question. Well, okay, but we've established their lies.
Yeah,
I don't have all night. We've established their lies. I'm trying to find out what they get out of it. You said they're trying to get a world that suits them. Well, what is it in that world that they get?
They get more accumulation of wealth in their pockets and less of it in ours.
How does the scientist who tells you to not have a motor car get money as a result of that?
You end up getting taxation and all kinds of levies on...
The scientists don't live on taxation. Some of them do, but they pay taxes as well.
Well, the scientists receive their funding by the same people who are in control of this agenda. 95%.
What is this
of all
agenda?
Scientists agree,
what is this agenda?
Agenda 2030.
And what is it?
Or the Great
Are you going to tell me again
the Green New Deal?
Yeah, I've got all that. What I'm trying to get at is what do they get out of it? I don't grasp what they get out of it. If we stop making motor cars, who benefits?
They want you and people like me and you to be like serfs. They see us,
but why?
Because they are evil.
Oh, right. So all they're doing is satisfying their evil. Thanks, Oscar. I thought we'd get there. Have a good night. No, they're satisfying their evil. That's what you said. I can live with that. How do Anthony?
Oh, good evening, Alan.
Good evening.
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation with Oscar.
I'm glad you think so. What would you like to talk about?
Right. I went to Liverpool today to go to my bank, the nearest branch from where I live in New Brighton. And the branch was about half a mile away from where the New Brighton Liverpool bus stops. So I had to go through Liverpool city centre before I got to the bank. But most of the city centre was dedicated to LGBT plus Right. There's
it was a Pride March, yeah.
Yeah, there's a Pride March, and there was a couple of festivals, music festivals, and you had a lot of young families, and the Queens, which were all
Okay, so we've got the picture.
Yep, and it was a very good. Yeah, I mean, luckily it was very good. Weather today, and they had street food. I tried Colombian street food, which was very good actually. But it would be something I'd never try, except I made the effort to go to the festivals, listen to the music.
I thought you'd gone to the bank. I thought you said you went to the bank
first.
All right.
Yeah, no, I went to the bank first.
Right. So when you said I went to Liverpool, I had to go to the bank, so I went to Liverpool. You were also going to the festival. Nothing wrong with that.
I didn't know about it.
Oh, so you just stumbled across it. Right. So you stumbled across it, and you enjoyed it.
And I just thought the difference between North Wirral and Liverpool. I mean, I've lived in Liverpool off and on for 20 years. Is that Liverpool really is a multicultural city? It's a port, and it looks out to North America. And
well, it doesn't really. Ireland's in the way, isn't it? I don't know what you mean.
In the way, but it makes a very interesting change. It's definitely that more tolerant of different cultures in Liverpool and the North Wirral. And I mean, North Wirral is basically a backwater of commuters, and they're nearly all white and quite traditional. Nothing wrong with that, but it makes hell of a.
So what you're saying effectively is that Liverpool's a multicultural area and North Wirral isn't. That it?
Yeah, basically.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Going to talk to Arthur after we've listened to a little bit of All of My Heart. 5:55, it's just after midnight, and we're here till 1 o'clock if you want to join us. Good. How do Arthur?
Morning, Alan. Yes, it's Arthur again. Regarding the lady who was talking earlier about her breakfast egg, well, recently I was taking a box of eggs from my fridge. For a strange reason, I dropped the box onto the floor. When I opened the box, all the eggs, all 6 eggs, when I cracked them open, were all white. They were okay, wasn't grey. They were okay, all white. Oh, sorry, I had a bit of a speech impediment, so they were okay. They were all white. But that should mean all right, okay, all right, something like this. But they were all white. That's it. Sorry, it's a joke.
Okay. Indeed it was, yes. Yeah. I'm sure somebody somewhere must have smiled at least. Cheers, Arthur. How do Elliot?
Hiya, Alan. I just want to follow up on something to link, hopefully, in well with the guy that you had calling up before, the Irish fella, who was talking about sort of post-counselling of the troubles and stuff like that in Ireland and the lack of it. Something that's happened in the last few years that's sort of the first real advancement in PTSD in counselling treatment, which is a revival of something from the 60s actually that was pushed under the carpet, is psychedelic therapy, particularly MDMA and LSD therapy, which is undergoing FDA. I think it's recently been FDA approved in the US, and certain states in Australia have now commissioned clinical trials to be conducted for non-treatable depression and particularly PTSD. all of this sort of stuff has been illegal to research in any capacity, even in universities, since about 1970, I believe. And the government are now, certain members of Parliament are now working behind the scenes to try and get it through Parliament for the same thing to happen in this country. Hopefully, as of 2024, from what I can gather, things might be underway to see some level of psychedelic treatment happening, being prescribed by the NHS, possibly as early as next year.
Right.
So I don't know if that's of any use to the fellow that rang before, because I know.
I can't say whether it's of any use to him or anybody else, but the kind of thing you're talking about, of course, would have to get through NICE for it to be permitted in this in this country. If it doesn't get through NICE, then it can't happen. So it would have to get through that, and I'm not aware of any formal investigations or research going on presently.
Yeah, there's definitely research going on at Imperial College, London. A guy called Robin Carhart Harris is the guy that's fronting it up.
We don't use names.
Don't do names. No. Okay. But yeah, there are a bunch of sort of neuroscientists and biologists working behind the scenes at it anyway. Whether they're actually conducting very stringent, very sort of strict clinical trials on it behind the scenes.
Well, it would have to be extraordinarily strict, because if they decide at the end of their experiment period that they can not market it as a product, but market it as a concept, then of course they're going to have to do even more specific research in a larger body of people before NICE will go anywhere near it.
Well, from the statistics that are out at the moment, are something like 60% non-remission after 9 months. That's people who were previously diagnosed as non-treatable clinical depression are no longer fit the criteria for depression after 9 months without remission. Those sorts of statistics are light years ahead of anything that's done currently on the NHS. So it's one of those issues. It's been brought up by a few members of Parliament as well. There was an MP whose name I won't name was talking about it in Parliament the other week. Labour MP.
What we'll have to wait and see. I mean, you said it could happen as early as 2024, which of course is next year. I personally would question that, because there would first of all be the inevitable backlash from the staid individuals who don't believe in that kind of thing per se, and then there would be, this is just, lunatics, if you like, selling their tin pot ideas, and it will take time. I know. I'm not telling you it is. I'm telling you that's the kind of response that it will engender.
Oh God, yeah. Oh God, it'll have all the same arguments that it had 60 years ago.
Absolutely, and until those arguments are overcome, it will be difficult for it to be implemented, assuming that it continues to demonstrate being valuable, because it's got to overcome the fear that MPs will have that when they go back to their constituents that they say thank you very much, but no thanks. So that's why I'm questioning the 2024, not because
you might be wrong on
it would be wrong, but because the political opportunity needs to come about before it'll run, because MPs are terrified of having to actually go out and get a proper job.
Yes, I think a lot of the reasons why it ever got brushed under the carpet in the first place was because of a fear-mongering thing that you say we're not allowed to mention names. Are we allowed to mention prime ministers and presidents' names?
If you like, yeah, go on. Don't bother about them.
So Richard Nixon, 1970, was the man who apparently was the guy that made sure that all this went out of the public eye, and no longer was able to, he couldn't research it in universities, and it didn't matter what angle at it, whether it was an academic angle or whatever, it was just not on the table for anyone. And that meant a 50-year war on drugs, which, as we all know, has been wholly unsuccessful. I think it's going to go on.
I think that was a bit of sarcasm, but yes.
Yeah.
Just a smidgen. I mean, the reality is that there are some very powerful people who are dead set against it dear God, we still haven't properly legalised cannabis. I'm not making the case that we should. No. But I went on holiday to Canada recently, not what you might call the most rabid lunatic country in the world, and they've got cannabis shops. Portugal, cannabis shops. Parts of some states in the United States have got cannabis shops.
Yeah.
But here, dear God, there's a long way off.
Put it this way: I've never seen anyone on a Friday and Saturday night battering someone in the high street because they were overdosed on cannabis.
Quite, but you're making the argument that it should be, and
no, I'm more like you. I'm sort of partisan. I'm standing on the sidelines with it. But,
but many people would make the case that you're making, that cannabis is less harmful than alcohol, and they may be right. I don't know. I'm not in a position to know that, but they may be right. But that doesn't matter. What they've got to do is convince the politicians that it's right. And
I said this. Yeah, you've got to have a big bank of case studies of demonstrable kind of examples of where someone who has had PTSD for 20 odd years suddenly snaps out of it. That might turn the necks of a few people, might it?
I'm not sure. I mean, yes, it ought to, if that evidence existed. I'm neither saying it does or doesn't, but yes, it ought to. But I'm not sure that the politician is that clear-thinking, evidence-based driven.
No, yeah.
And politicians need to support such change. Well, I don't know if it's ulterior motive. I think it's often just plain ordinary fear.
Yeah, well, this is what started it in the first place, though, isn't it? As we all know.
Yes, and it hasn't got less frightening to those individuals.
It's not frightening. I don't even think it's any less frightening to the people that do know about it. So I don't sort of. I can sympathise with people who think that it's a frightening concept. It is. It is even to the most knowledgeable about it. I think because it's such a frontier of the unknown. Literally, I mean, it's absolutely new, all of this stuff, and it's astounding, I think, that we've gone for so many years with it being hushed and brushed under the carpet and not even being a topic of conversation. I mean, it's so damn 20 odd years ago, it's so unfashionable. The word psychedelic even was so just not of the time. It just wasn't anywhere to be seen in universities, campuses, political debate, parliament. It wasn't in any of the pop culture really. But I think that might also, if it can have a pop culture revival, because the drivers of the word psychedelic in the 60s were actually more to do with the clothes and the music and the cars and the artwork and that period that lasted for about 2 years in the late 60s, wasn't it? It wasn't really the drugs. The vast majority of people that claim to remember the psychedelic period in the 60s probably didn't have their heads in research papers about LSD and Albert Hoffman.
Let us not dwell on the aforementioned. Elliot, by next year, I think unlikely, one day possibly. Good to talk to you. How do Dean? Hello, Dean.
Hello. Hiya.
Hello.
Hiya. Sorry.
Hiya.
It's Sam. Hiya. Dean is my friend. He wanted to speak after me if it was possible.
Well, he can't. Either you speak or he speaks. I'm not getting in a queue.
Okay, I'll speak. Yeah. So, Alan, you said the countries were invaded, and something down the line is...
You're not Dean, are you?
No, I'm Sam. Dean is my friend. He was going to speak after me, but if he's
Well,
not...
he can ring.
Yeah, he can ring. Okay, so the countries... I read the article, and the numbers were on there, the people that come in from them foreign countries, and the countries that, you said invaded, but it was liberation for most part. The numbers from them countries is really low. It's the numbers you haven't liberated or invented. That's where the numbers are mainly coming from. Does that make sense?
Not yet.
Yeah. So, so if you look at Iraq, the numbers that people come from Iraq is way less than the people that come from Syria. But Britain had nothing to do with the Syrian war, and then the numbers. And then I don't want to name countries, but there's a country in Europe. There's a lot. The vast majority of them refugees come from there, and then Syria. But then Britain didn't have anything to do with Syria. You know what I mean? So it's got nothing to do with the liberation of Iraq or Afghanistan.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So I would say probably liberate more countries, and probably less people will come. Like.
Of course, the trouble with the word liberate is it is of itself a loaded word.
Well, it was Iraq. It was liberation because, I mean, at the time they went there, the chemical weapons were all used up, so there was none to find. But he was more than capable of getting more chemical weapons to use, and he did use chemical weapons. He killed thousands and thousands. And then when you look at refugee numbers, I mean, there's people coming from Iraq, but it's nothing compared to what coming people from Syria or some other countries that Britain got nothing to do with. That there was a civil war within themselves. Or does that make sense?
Yeah, sort of. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I'll do Peter.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
Awfully well, thank you.
Excellent. Just to further that conversation you had before, that's not really why I'm ringing, but each individual is different when it comes to how they react to alcohol and drugs, aren't they? And it's very hard to sort of compartmentalise everybody in a norm, isn't it? If you get three people in a pub drinking alcohol, one might be quite placid and one might get quite violent. So it's very hard, isn't it, to determine statistically how we're all going to react to all these things.
Well, what you can say is that a particular drug, alcohol, any other drug, I suppose you can argue that it accentuates those elements of a personality that are inhibited by convention.
Right, yeah, I'd agree with that. Anyway, that's not why I rang, but it's just an interesting point. I'm ringing about the profits these energy companies are making. I think British Gas announced, was it yesterday or the day before, that they've made £969 million. Was that just in the first 6 months of this year? And Centrica, 2-point-something billion, wasn't it? What's the relationship these days between Centrica and British Gas? Are they essentially the same company?
Well, I think British Gas sell the gas, and Centrica controlled the hardware, if you like, the pipes under the ground and all the rest of it.
Because in the old days, there was a company called Transco, wasn't there? And then
there's
National Grid Gas, who are a bit like the electricity board, who supply the stuff, but the selling of it is a different entity now, isn't it? The actual admin and stuff.
Well, what they've had to do in order to pretend that the market is a competitive market, they have to take control of the infrastructure from a company that also sells the product, rather like with BT. BT and whatever they're called, the people that do the wires underground and all that, I forgot their name.
Oh, Openreach.
But Openreach, they're still owned and totally owned by BT.
They are.
But they
took the word BT off their vans, though, didn't they?
Indeed, well, they have to operate as an entirely separate entity. Otherwise,
they work for other companies now, like TalkTalk.
Well, no, they don't work for any of the companies. They're
a thing on their own right, are they?
They're a thing in their own right, and they run the thing. Because otherwise, you mentioned one particular telephone company would come to them and say, we want to put telephones into, I don't know, Manchester, and then say, okay, that's £6 billion. They say, hang on a minute, you're not charging BT that. Oh, well, they're us. So we're not charging them that. So it had to be separated.
Are they more biased towards their own than they are to the other companies?
No, that's what the whole idea
they used
of the...
to be, didn't they?
I don't know whether they used to be, but they certainly had the ability to be. But by separating them, now the two companies have to operate at arm's length, even though all the profits they make or losses go to the same ultimate board.
But they have to treat each individual customer as a customer rather than bias them towards one company or another, then, do they?
Yes.
Yes, well, that's fair enough. But going back to the energy, I don't know if how much you scrutinise your bill, but prior to COVID and the Ukraine war, the standing charge for electricity was quite low compared to gas. And now it's gone completely the other way. And I don't quite understand that, because we've got all these wind generators and all the rest of it. Why is the standing charge for electricity gone up by 500%, but the standing charge for gas only gone up a relatively small amount? Because it means all those people who don't have gas, they're guaranteeing a lot more money from everyone has electricity, don't they?
The answer might be in what you said. We've got all this stuff going on with putting up power stations hither and thither and putting up windmills all over the damn place, and it could possibly be, I don't know, related to the fact that there is a bigger capital investment required from electricity than from gas, because gas aren't going anywhere.
Is that what they're telling us then?
I'm sorry?
Is that what the industry is telling us? That
No,
it's costing more on the electricity side than it's the gas side?
That was what I said might be the reason. I'm not saying it is. I don't know the reason. I mean,
but do you remember
both of the energy elements, if you like, all of them, but both of them are controlled by the energy watchdog, if you like, who tells them how much they can charge maximum. Now, that leaves them the ability to charge less if they're in competition, but they can't go over a certain level. And one of the reasons the energy companies' profits are so huge at the moment is because they, if you like, they are allowed to add on a fixed percentage on turnover as profit. So if they pay £100 for gas, they add 5% as their profit, they get a fiver. If the gas price goes up to £200 and they have to pay £200, they add 5%, but that's a tenner. So their profits have now doubled. And yet in another respect, they've stayed the same. It's not like a company that is in an entirely open market who can do what they like with the prices. They are limited as a percentage of price, if you like.
But they must have persuaded the regulator that they're justified in being able to charge a bit more for the standing charge. Because in the old days, some companies didn't charge anything for standing charge. And
indeed, in the old days, none of them did. One of the problems is that you can argue for and against the standard charge with equal measure, and both will be correct. But you imagine that you are a person who uses a smidgen of electricity,
Well,
a tiny
like
amount.
I'm a low user, but
So
yeah.
you're a low user. So you live in your property. You're a low user. So who pays for the wires to get to your house? Well, it ain't you, because you're not getting enough money in.
Exactly.
And so
it's a balance,
they started to say, well, hang on a minute, the wires cost the same whether they shove down £1,000 worth of electricity or £10 worth of electricity. So the bloke whose electric bill is £1,000 is paying for your wires.
Well, the wires are already there, but
they still have to be paid for.
If you're advancing the technology,
They still have to be paid for. They still have to be maintained. They still have to come and dig up your bloody road every now and then
And
to
then you've
sort
got the
them out.
green stuff on top of that, haven't you?
Well,
So I
I'm
suppose,
just talking about the standard charge. Why some never charged it and others did, and then people, particularly
I
the
just
well-off
wondered
people who have
why
big
it's gone
bills, said,
so
"Why
much
am I
the
paying
other
for
way,
this?"
though, Alan.
I don't know.
No, it just seems very odd. And one, I was listening to Moneybox the other day on Radio 4, and what's really annoying me is, I think they said there's about 750,000 people who never got the £66 a month we were getting for about
Correct.
6 months. So that's £400 that the government have pocketed. And they've got a bit of a campaign going that, some people did apply for this and were rejected, and they're not really happy about the grounds on which they were rejected.
Yeah.
And there's a big debate going on in Parliament about this at the moment, isn't there?
One has to say that it is yet another case of hurried legislation being crap legislation.
And like, if you remember with the pension, they've extended the period now that you can claim back some of the national insurance payments, haven't they? Why can't they do that with the energy then? If they've rushed it, can't somebody say, hang on a minute, all these people have lost out, let's reconsider this? And hopefully that's what
yes, they can, which is why they're discussing it in Parliament. Yeah. I remember when I was a welfare rights worker working at the Citizens Advice Bureau many, many years ago, the 70s. I was, for want of a better expression, a welfare rights specialist. And I was on a national committee at the CAB, and we came up with this equation where the government spent more money prosecuting people who fiddled the benefits than they did advertising the benefits, so that all the people who didn't claim them didn't get them. So they actually saved millions and millions per year from people who didn't claim the benefit.
It is. We've talked about fairness in the past, you and I, but it is a bit unfair if you haven't got a bank account, or you're not able to claim it the way. I mean, with me, for example, it just automatically plopped into my account because I pay by direct debit. But not everybody pays that way, and it just they lose out to some of them, don't they?
Yeah, but some of the people who should be receiving it live a complicated style of life and aren't contactable. My favourite story of this kind of thing, and I don't even know whether the story's true, but I want to believe it. And I don't know whether you've driven along the M62.
Yes.
But the M62 on the high hills splits at one point, and it goes one way that way.
Where that farm is.
Where that farm is.
Yes.
Now the argument goes.
It's because of the farm. It's because the land wasn't very good, so they had to move one of the carriageways further to the other direction, didn't they? It just there is a farm there.
And the argument goes, and I know not whether it's true, but it's one of those stories, almost apocryphal. Yeah. And the argument goes that because they were surrounding this farm with a motorway, the landowner got quite a lot of money compensation.
Oh, right, okay.
But the landowner isn't the farmer.
Oh, isn't he? Oh, right.
No,
who's the landowner then?
I don't know. It might probably Lord Gobshite or something. I don't know. But the landowner got compensation and thought, well, that's good. I'll have that. Thank you very much. The farmer, who has to work every day with it. Now, it may not be true. It may not be true, but it's that kind of thing where the government says, we're going to do this, or the agencies of the government say, we're going to do this. And then somewhere down the line, they haven't thought through to the very last inch of every tentacle of the octopus. So it falls apart, and that's not unheard of. It's common.
It reminds me a bit about the myth that people say when it's very warm and the reservoirs around Ladybower drain, you can hear the bell of the church, which is absolute nonsense because it's been moved.
I know, but it is good, isn't it?
It is quite funny, but it's one of those myths, isn't it? The roads are split and the farmers made a killing.
It's a good one.
It's
The way things are going, a lot more villages are going to be drowned because we're running out of water. Peter, good to talk to you. How do Gary?
Hello, Alan.
Hello, Gary.
Let me just turn the telly down. Hey, I just wondered what you thought about this case in the media about Andy Malkinson.
I don't know who that is.
Pardon?
I don't know who that is.
This guy, he was imprisoned for rape for 7 years. He could have been released.
Well, it's 17 years, not 7, if it's the gentleman I think you're talking about.
No, he was 7 years, but he could have got out if he just admitted what he'd done.
Mm-hmm.
So he did an extra 10 years. Is that correct?
I don't know. You're telling me the tale.
You said it was 17 years.
Well, it depends which person you're talking about. As I said, I don't know the person you're referring to.
Did you not just say 7 and 17 years? I thought you was making a comment about the case.
I thought you were referring to an entirely different case, so do carry on.
I was just plugging my phone back in. It was nearly
All right, well, let's not worry about plugged-in phones or not. Don't use any more names. Just tell me the story, and then tell me what you think about it.
He was a security guard. He lived in Grimsby, and a lady got raped in Little Hulton, and he travelled obviously to work, and he was picked out. Didn't have any evidence on him. He was just picked out in a lineup by. It said serious criminals. I don't know what they mean by serious criminals. He's picked out anyway, and they say it's either a police bungle or a corruption. I just don't know what you thought about it.
Well, you've only told me about the offence at the moment.
Pardon?
I said you've only told me about the offence at the moment.
Oh, the offence. Yeah, but you know that it's been. You know that it's been.
No, I don't know anything. You're telling me the story.
Oh right, yeah. So he went to prison for 7 years. Well, he got in prison for 7 years, but he would not admit that he did it because he didn't do it. That's what he's saying. And he did an extra 10 years. And when he got out, he's just been in the High Court this week and saying that his conviction was unsafe and that.
I know who you. They didn't say his conviction was unsafe. They said his conviction was wrong.
All right. Well, I thought that's what they said on the news. Because when they say
so what are you wanting to go on and say? So we all, because we've all read the papers and watched the news and listened to it. What is it you're wanting to say about it?
I was just. Because what I heard on the news, which you're probably not going to verify, is that the unfortunate person who was raped, and strangled to unconsciousness. Did he just? I mean, is that what he got? Did he get 7 years for attempted murder and rape, or did he get 7 years for rape?
I don't know.
And you don't know anything about the story?
I don't know the detail you've just asked.
Alright. Okay then. Not far from where you used to live though, is it?
Quite a long way from where I used to live, but somebody must have lived near there. Anyway, good night. I'll do Martin.
Good morning, Alan.
Morning, Martin.
I have two little questions to ask you. One refers to the electricity. A gentleman asked 2 callers ago. My company I'm with, I've only got electricity, not gas. I live in an apartment block, and there's no gas to the apartment. So no one's got gas in this apartment, it's just electric. And the company I supply my electric do not charge me a standing charge.
Fair enough.
So I just thought I'd say, I know you said most companies years ago didn't anyway, but most of them do now. Like the one I'm with, so I'm quite happy with that. And the other question I'd like to answer is, why do eggs sometimes why do eggs not have a yolk?
Mm-hmm.
I've looked the answer up to you. I can read a bit of it. It is when the reproductive tissue of chicken eggs ends up in their oviducts. When this occurs, eggs will be laid as usual and they are perfectly safe to eat. It seems like an odd thing and may leave you with a baffling question. Or it says it's very rare. It's a rare event.
Right.
But that came from Poultry Parade, which is online.
Okay, well, Poultry Parade must know. Good on you, Martin. Thank you. How do Sean?
Hello, Alan.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Awfully well, thank you.
I want to talk about global stations.
About what?
Global stations. Like
Spell
the different... like,
spell the first word for me.
the global.
Spell it more slowly.
The.
Global, right. Global
Yeah,
stations. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so they've got different stations like Capital, Heart, Classic, FM, Snooze.
Who cares? So what do you want to say about them? Well, we've got all that. What do you want to say about them?
So I listen to Capital all the time.
Well, you're not doing now. Good night. How did Dean?
Hi, Alan. You alright?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. So I was going to speak about the train strike. A while ago, I took 3 weeks off work because I had to plan my wedding. But initially, I had to take 2 weeks off. But because my wedding plan, it took about 3 weeks, so I lost my job. And then I got married, but then it lasted about 16 hours, and then I got divorced. But then, so when I came back, I lost my job basically. So I was looking for another job, and then I had to get a train to Manchester. And then I didn't realize there was a strike, and it was really inconvenient. And yeah, I didn't get the job at the end because I was late. I had to get a taxi, and I paid £70 to get to Manchester. And I was just fuming because I had no idea there was a train strike at the time. You know why there was a train strike?
Presumably because the people who are employed by the train company wanted some more money.
Yeah, I know, but I honestly didn't have a clue. And then I went into the train station. There was no trains, and there was one man standing with a uniform. Then I had to just I was like, what's going on here? And then I ended up not getting the job. And it was confusing because there was no trains. But then I realized there was a strike. Because I read an article a couple of days ago, but I thought I didn't have a clue it was a train strike. But yeah, the strike went on for a while.
Well, I guess next time you'll check.
gonna have to check next time. But then I went for 2 job interviews actually. But then, yeah, that's all I was going to say. I was actually fuming.
Yeah, I can see that. I can understand why you would be less than pleased.
Yeah, my marriage lasted 16 hours. I was trying to get a job. I had no idea there was train strikes. I was absolutely fuming. I honestly was.
Listening to you, Dean, I think the woman is the most stoic person on earth that she managed you for 60 hours. Have a good night. 0800 218 2255. If you want to join us, you can. Pick up your phone, have your say, but you'll have to be mighty quick because it's 5 to 1 and we sling a zook at 1. But a very quick shufty at your Sunday morning newspapers, at least the front pages thereof, reveals... a mixed bag, I think, is the safe way of describing it. A mixed bag of stories. Often you get the same story on the front of every page, but not tomorrow morning. I know. For example, the Sunday Times, it's got Jeremy Clarkson on the front page, but you can't have everything. Nations unite against Facebook over encryption plans that endanger children. Sunak, Prime Minister, to pour millions into North Sea oil. Told you about that earlier. And bad boys of Brexit claim they were debanked like Farage. Not debunked, but debanked. And fears for diabetics as dieters buy up vital drugs. There you go. Sunday Mirror front page. Sunak's copped a cop-out. He travels 200 miles in a Tory donor's chopper. Why is he having to get a Tory donor to do it? He's got money piled higher than him. Mind you, the height of him, he could still be poor. Sunday Telegraph, I am on the motorist side, says the Prime Minister, as he orders a full review of anti-car schemes, presumably whilst he was in his helicopter. HS2 appears to be unachievable, says the watchdog, and Farage launches a debanking victims website. That's got to be worth joining, hasn't it? What? Absolutely. Any road up. Whether it isn't or it isn't, or it is, he's launched the damn thing, and I'm sure he'll get lots and lots of advertising which will make him very, very rich, and eventually be rich enough to have a bank account at Coots. The Mail on Sunday, holiday chaos fear over EU Big Brother visas, and why we'll never see William in a kilt. If only we could get the same promise from his dad. Game of halves. Footy boss Ollie's dead father haunts his car. And the Sunday Express, not again. Winter energy bills to soar. But will the government pay them this time? Don't abandon clean air policies, warn scientists, so says the front page of The Guardian. And why are we telling The Guardian for Sunday? I don't really know. I read The Guardian this morning and read the whole of that story. Any road up. Lee Charles, the real-life drama of Reacher author. Ooh, that's interesting. He was on BBC Radio Manchester quite recently. Well, I can't remember why, other than he's probably got another book out. Or did he say I'm not writing anymore? Nah, I don't remember. I didn't hear the full interview, so I'm not in a position to say. Who cares? Any road up. We are where we are. We shall, the team and I, be back 10 o'clock tonight. Sunday night, that is. Which is nice. We've got some nice music lined up for you. Too many words, too many nices in that story. Me using the word nice. God, it doesn't belong in my lips. If we get to it, we'll be playing Adele, Aretha Franklin, Bill Withers, Ain't No Sunshine. I play that in Greece. Kate Bush, wow. Van Morrison, Bright Side of the Road. We could get through all this, and Sting even. Yeah. So, you know, quite a night lined up for later. 10 o'clock.
BBC News at 1 o'clock. This is Charlotte Reid. Rishi Sunak has ordered a review of council schemes that try to limit levels of traffic in towns and city centres. Low traffic neighbourhoods have been introduced in some places, with drivers often prevented from using quiet residential roads as through routes and people encouraged to use other forms of transport. The Prime Minister has told the Sunday Telegraph he wants to show drivers that he's on their side. Police searching for a missing man who fell into a river in Hereford say they've made 3 arrests. 3 men are being held on suspicion of murder. An explosion at a fireworks warehouse in southern Thailand has killed at least 9 people, including 3 children. Officials said more than 100 others were injured. The blast caused widespread destruction, as our Southeast Asia correspondent Jonathan Head reports.
The local governor said the cause of the explosion was a technical error by welders working on a warehouse where fireworks were stored. Accidents involving fireworks, which are commonly used in Southeast Asia to commemorate big events, are not unusual. And despite public pressure to improve safety, Thailand still has a poor record of accidents on its roads, construction sites and in the workplace. Enforcement of regulations is all the more challenging in Sungai Golok, a notoriously rowdy border town where anything goes, in a region of Thailand which is still blighted by an active armed insurgency.
The number of tigers in India has risen to almost 3,700, an annual increase of more than 6%. Threats, including deforestation and poaching, had led to a drop in numbers. Deshin Doji is from the World Wildlife Fund and says teamwork has been vital in this case.
I think it's a reflection of immense political will and commitment, great leadership, and also I think the biggest one is really people on the ground who are working, on a day-to-day basis in terms of protecting tigers and conserving its habitat.
England's Stuart Broad, considered one of the greatest bowlers in the history of Test cricket, has announced his retirement. The 37-year-old said he'd call it a day at the end of the Ashes series against Australia. He said it had been a huge privilege to represent his country. The former England captain Sir Alistair Cook said Stuart Broad had been fantastic.
He's had an unbelievable career, turbulent along the way, some tough moments, but some moments of unbelievable skill as well. And being on the pitch for his spells, which we all know is incredible.
Football, and at the Women's World Cup, the England team say Kira Walsh's knee injury isn't as serious as initially thought. She had to be taken off the pitch on a stretcher during their last match against Denmark, prompting fears that she'd miss the rest of the tournament. England say she'll stay with the rest of the team while her knee continues to be assessed. And that's the latest BBC News. It's 3 minutes past 1.